you silly.
I'm gonna sit by you, pal.
Is that Fiji water?
You're sitting over there?
Oh, no. I see. So you're just going to do what we did Monday?
No, I'm gonna stay here.
Okay, then yeah, unless that's a problem.
That's fine.
Well-
I just gotta move the camera.
And we already tested that mic over there for you.
Oh, I can sit here.
No, it's okay. You can sit wherever you want.
Just gotta make sure that mic works.
Yeah. Why don't you disrupt the show?
Alright. Can you test that?
Check 1. Testing. Check 2.
Oh, that's going over there.
Hey, guys.
The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year. Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Trying it out. Trying new stuff. Hey, guys, welcome in Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy
He's
Farmers.
going to do the whole show slouched.
Trying new stuff, dude.
You're going to hurt your back.
I mean, I have a lot more issues than
I
just
feel
doing
like it
that
would
now.
be easier if you just sat, if you sat back. Well, no,
Look, there we go.
because isn't there room over there on that side too?
Oh, there sure is.
Hey,
So why are you doing it like that? Do it like I have it.
Is your mic good?
I think.
Then we're good.
Okay, all right.
You have one mic to worry about.
I was just trying to help you out.
No, we're good.
Because
I'll move it over to the
you
side.
seem uncomfortable.
No, I'm
That's
actually.
all I'm saying is you seem uncomfortable.
I'm very comfortable. No, so the reason we're starting a little late today is 1,000,000% on me, and I know you guys are gonna say, "Ha, like, no kidding." Like we're used to that. I had to get some dental procedures done the last 2 days, so my mouth is numb, or at least half my mouth is numb. So yeah, I've been like slouched back in the chair since like 7:30 this morning. So
I see. So you're just ready to roll.
I'm ready to roll. I'm comfortable sitting like this.
That's okay. Listen, I don't care. I was thinking of you.
Yeah.
I was thinking of you, guy.
But I apologize, but we're off and rolling. Jacob's up behind the desk today, doing Casey's stuff, of course. Yeah, Casey's job's not easy. Casey's job's not easy.
No, a lot more goes into it than I think. I had to get here a little earlier in the morning to make sure everything was set up, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
It's
so
all
you
good.
being late was the problem.
We're rolling.
That's right.
Oh, We were very much ready at 10 a.m. I was not going to be the reason the show didn't start on time. So
You should try sometime. It's a great feeling.
we were good on my end.
But no, I appreciate you guys. Thank you again. Starting a little late, but we're off and rolling. Reds have a little afternoon action today. I thought we could talk some Reds coming up in a bit.
Sure, I love the Reds.
We haven't talked Reds in a while as far as in-depth. Last night, Chatterbox Reds. We'll get into this coming up in a moment. I know we got headlines to kick everything off. But I know last night that Trace and Nick had talked about the Reds core. Because we sit here and talk so much about, well, the Reds core to build around this young core. But the bottom line is what is the Reds core? You know, and Trace made a great point last night. I think the list of the Reds core is like so short that it might blow your minds, and we're going to get to that coming up here in a bit. But no minds will be blown. I'm being dramatic, right? A little facetious. But let's kick the show off with Elliot's headlines.
Oh!
And spoiler alert, I know how to do this now.
Do you really?
Elliot loves three things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
Whoa, how about that? That was pretty slick, guy.
Yeah, watch out, Casey.
Headlines. Speaking of the Reds fall to the Cardinals 2-1 last night. Good loss. But to be fair to them, 2 runs is the most they've allowed. It's the most Reds pitching has given up in their last 4 games. So the Reds pitching staff is figuring it out a little bit. Brandon Williamson looked great. Tossed 5 innings, a 3-hit baseball. He struck out 5 as well. Fernando Cruz, he struck out 4 to get his 5 outs. Buck Farmer, he gave up the losing run in the 8th inning, unfortunately. Paul Goldschmidt, shout out to him. Jonathan India, Spencer Steer, Santiago Espinal, Jake Fraley, and Noelvi Marte were the only Reds to reach base. They had 5 hits, and Noelvi did add a walk as well. Jonathan India, just a note, this is my guy, this is my sweet prince. He's hitting 193 with a 299 OBP and a 351 slugging percentage over his last month of action. Really, it's just been a downhill trend since the All-Star break, as it's felt like it's been for a lot of these Reds hitters. The offense just hasn't been there, and it's been tough to watch, especially when all your pitchers go down. The Reds and Cardinals, they're back at it today, 1:15 for the rubber match. Jacob Junis takes on former Red Sonny Gray. Junis 4-0 with a 2.82 ERA, 0.92 WHIP. Sonny is 12-9 with a 3.84 ERA and a 1.09 WHIP. Should be a low-scoring game. Should be a good game. So hopefully the Reds can take the rubber match just for bragging rights, I guess. Around the league, the Dodgers, they hanging on to beat the Cubs last night by a score of 10-8. Shohei Ohtani stole another base and hit another home run. He has 48 stolen bases. 47 home runs. Absolutely incredible. The Giants, they rout the Brewers 13-2. Colin Rea gave up 10 earned runs on 11 hits. 4 innings of work there. Brian Wu carried a perfect game into the 7th inning, but unfortunately lost it. The Mariners did still manage to beat the Padres 5-2. The Athletics, they take the series away from Houston. Brent Rooker and Kyle McCann carried the way there. Red Sox walked off the Orioles last night in extra innings on a Tyler O'Neill 3-run blast. Angels, they lose to the Twins 6-4. Royals fall to the Yankees 4-3 in 11 innings. The Nationals beat the Braves 5-1. Detroit scored 6 runs in the first inning, and all of a sudden the Tigers have life. They're 3 games out of a wild card spot. So I was going to give an update on the wild card standings here. So we'll start with the American League. The Guardians still have the 1 seed as of right now. The Yankees are I guess tied with them, but I don't know if there's a tie break going to the Guardians, but the Guardians are listed ahead of the Yankees with the same record. The Astros are winning the West, so they have the 3rd seed there. The Orioles, the Royals, and the Twins are all in the postseason as of now, but the Tigers, again, 3 games back of the Twins, so we'll see if there's some noise there. Crazy, by the way. 4 playoff teams in the AL Central. And then the one team that isn't just happens to be the worst team ever assembled.
There's no in between.
No, that's wild.
The AL Central, what was the perception of that coming in? I don't feel like we were giving it this much love, right? Like,
well, definitely weren't.
That's
It was probably a 1 playoff team division.
And there's like the reason we've discredited the Guardians' success and reason, not really discredited it, but like, well, someone has to win that division.
Yeah.
And they, so even in years where they haven't had expectations and they get off to a hot start, it's like, well, again, someone has to win that division. But yeah, this division has definitely caught everyone by surprise. I wish the NL Central would do that.
So let's take it. Here's a fun little nugget. The Chicago White Sox run differential. Anybody want to guess? I'll give you some reference points. So the Los Angeles Angels have a run differential of minus 128 runs. The Texas Rangers have a run differential of minus 55. The Oakland Athletics have a run differential of minus 92. Let's take a guess what the White Sox run differential is.
I can't take the guess just because
Yeah, your microphone's way over there.
Yeah. Dude, I should have put it all the way over. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have it up in front of me, so that it won't be fair for me.
Okay,
to guess,
so
but
Jacob, take a guess.
It's a wild
Take a
number.
guess. Run differential for the White Sox.
200s.
How about minus 311?
Wow.
Tough. 33 and 114. Go team, go. 45 and a half back of a wild card spot. Maybe they can get in. National League though, Phillies have the 1 seed, 88 and 58. The Dodgers are a game back behind them with the 2 seed, 87 and 59. And the Brewers are a couple games back there, 83 and 62. But those are pretty much all locked up unless something crazy happens in the West. You have the Diamondbacks having the first playoffs or the first wild card spot as of today, but that could change. The Padres also have the same amount of wins, just one less loss. The Mets, 80 and 66, they are a half game up, or a full game up, over the Atlanta Braves. The Chicago Cubs are 5 games back, Cardinals 6.5, Giants 8, and there are the Reds at 9.5 games back, 71 and 76. But that's it. Those are your MLB headlines. I have one more headline, which kind of broke yesterday. The Pac-12 is back. How about that? The Pac is back. We have 4 teams announcing that they will be joining the Pac-12 in the 2026-2027 academic season. Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and Fresno State, all the states. They will be joining the Pac-12 alongside Oregon State and Washington State.
But still only Power 4, though. It's weird to see a conference go from a Power 5 conference to drop out of the Power 5, and now they're just a group of 6.
Yeah.
And then there were 6.
How about that? Also, we have a special super chat from Amy Hartz, $4.99. Happy birthday, Tom Brenneman. I didn't know it was Tom's birthday.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday, Tom.
If true.
If true. No way of knowing.
No way. I mean, there's quite literally no way we could know.
But
I always want an excuse to go to a bar. That sounds like a good excuse. We
Yeah.
should take everyone out to the bar for Tom's birthday.
which bar would you take him to?
I don't know. He may not even go, but it's just an excuse to go to a bar.
I like that.
Oh, Kinner's at the bar tonight. Oh, it's Tom's birthday. Oh, tell Tom I said hi. Oh, I'm not here with Tom. I'm just at a bar celebrating Tom's birthday, dude.
I like that.
Yeah.
Back to the Pac-12 thing for just
Yeah.
1 second. It is certainly interesting to add these teams because it's going to save the conference. If you only have 2 teams, the conference can't exist forever. But there's still 2 teams short. You need 8 teams to be a conference in the NCAA, and they're at 6 right now with these new additions. So I think it's important to keep an eye on who else they're going to add, if they're going to stop at 8, if they're going to go to 10, go to 12. One team I've heard thrown out there so far is North Dakota State, the team that played Colorado very close. The FCS Power has won multiple national championships in their current division. I'm not sure what their buyout would be from the FCS. I know it's pretty steep, but if they could add a team like that to their conference in the FBS and have that transition go smoothly and North Dakota State be a competitive team, that could be a really fun conference pretty quickly. And UNLV wasn't in that list either. They're a team who a lot of people expect to be in that final group of 5 teams that are in the mix for the playoff this year, so they're another team out there that's certainly interesting to add. There's a lot of good teams out on the West Coast that are looking for a new conference, and with the realignment, the Pac-12 has an opportunity to add a bunch. I think this conference is going to be fun pretty quickly once they get all these new teams in there.
Yeah, I see. So Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State. Contenders for the next 2 editions that are being considered, like you talked about, Jake. UNLV, obviously, in there. Utah State, who USC just played this past weekend, New Mexico, Air Force, and Wyoming. Those are the names being floated around, being considered for additional Pac-12 teams. So
you have to wonder what's going to happen in the Mountain West, too. Losing all these teams, losing your top shelf of talent, they're going to have to add teams in order to save their conference. And when you're a lower conference and the upper conferences are poaching your teams, you have to go even lower. So maybe they are the ones that strike gold with some FCS teams, but I'm not sure. Both conferences are definitely going to be interesting to watch as we go through the next few years.
Poor TNT, you lose, Shaq and Ernie and Kenny and Barkley, and now the Mountain West because they put a big bid in to get the Mountain West football. They get that for 1 year, and they poach all the teams. So
brutal.
There you go. I don't know if you guys saw this too. Joe Buck, did you see what he did to his wife? Put her in the hospital?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
No, I kid you not. This is not a joke. Nothing major. It made it sound like he did something like mean. So they were out on a date. They were out golfing together, and for whatever reason, she did a handstand while he was teeing off.
As one does.
This is why you don't take your wife on the golf course.
Oh, there he goes, Kenner.
Well, yeah, I mean, poor Joe, she's trying to take it serious, and she's doing cartwheels, and he blasted the ball into her ankle, shattered it.
Oh, my.
And she's had to have multiple surgeries. So Adam Schefter, Bengals insider, tweeted that out yesterday. So then Joe was getting, like, a ton of, like, hate stuff on Twitter. Like, what'd you do to your wife? So he had to go and do a video from the parking lot at the hospital where she was in a boot. But, yes, she did a cartwheel or a handstand or something wild on the tee box. Why? And as he teed off, it just, I mean, even if he was aiming for it, he could probably aim for it again the next time and would miss it every
100%.
single time. I mean, the timing of that, the unfortunate timing of that.
Yeah, that's a wild headline. That's an absolutely preposterous headline.
He posted a video. He said he loses sleep at night. He can't sleep at night because he still hears the sound of the ball shattering her ankle. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, that is such a wild story.
Was he, like, serious in the video? Like, was he completely serious? Like,
well, him and her, they both did a live video together,
Okay.
so she could say, hey, he didn't, break Mike. He didn't hurt me. Like, I was screwing around when we were golfing, and there you go. But one of the wilder sports stories. As far as that video goes, another video.
Everett, by the way, Everett says people who shoot 110 probably shouldn't shame who comes to the golf course.
Everett, what do you shoot? I don't think it really matters what you shoot. I think we could all agree. I mean, like, it's okay. You have to argue everything, but I mean, I think we could all agree that wife, non-wife, friend, non-friend should not be doing cartwheels on the tee box. Like, I want to be
I
sympathetic.
don't know. I'm starting to get on the side of maybe we should do more handstands on tee boxes. I think that's
Is that
fun.
the next man on the street?
I
Man on
think
the
that
tee box?
is. I think that is.
You do
See how many shots it takes for us to shatter
Elliot's
ankle?
ankle.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's a win-win for you. It's great content and workers' comp.
Yeah, that's that. Well, I
Has
don't
anyone
know.
tested that here?
Yeah, I don't think we have. I don't think that would
Don't
work.
want to be the first.
Yeah.
Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube. No ESPN 1410 today. Reds in action for the afternoon, so that preempts the show as far as that goes.
Is the comfort level getting better for you yet?
Comfort level
Yeah,
with
you
this?
just- yeah.
I'm not uncomfortable. I may look uncomfortable, but that's just how I look. I'm
Okay.
short. I'm short and fat.
Well,
dude.
I'm just testing you. I'm just making sure. I'm checking up on you.
I feel like I'm making you uncomfortable.
You are, because it's a very weird position to sit in.
Why?
But nonetheless, I respect it. I respect it. Kind
Well, where was I? Got distracted.
I don't know. I completely threw you off.
By the way, what the hell, Shannon Sharp thing?
Here we go.
No, I seriously.
Here we go.
Here we go. No. We don't need to go
Shannon
too.
Sharp. Okay, roll the clip.
Yeah.
Roll
We're
the
not on
clip.
radio today. I'm just saying. So I've gone to my phone multiple times to go to Instagram Live.
Yeah.
I don't know how you butt dial, or whatever you want to call it, dial. I don't know how you butt dial Instagram Live. I don't know how you go live on it. It's not.
It happens a lot.
Is it really? Like, I know, like, so I have friends with kids, and their kids are always messing with their phones, and sometimes they go live on Facebook, whatever. But I was messing with Instagram, like, last night, just like how detailed you have to be.
Oh, yeah.
Hit go live, type in something, next, go live now, schedule later. Like, it's a long process. I don't know how you, and especially he said he walked in the room and just threw it on the bed. I mean, I don't know, dude. Like, what the heck? Like, I mean, I don't think he wants the sounds of that out there for no reason, but unless he's going for a different kind of TV career, I just don't understand what happened there because I'm trying to figure it out how you accidentally go live on Instagram.
Yeah, no, I mean, going on live on Instagram is like a 5-6 click process.
Yes.
It's hard to do, but these accidental lives with celebrities, I feel like, happen at a relatively high clip. So I don't know if maybe when you get over a certain follower threshold, it takes less clicks
That's my
to go
problem.
live.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but
I
this never happens to me, and it happens to famous people all the time. Going live on accident.
I literally don't know how to do it. I'm trying to figure it out on my phone right now. I don't know how to go live on here. So I don't know. Good. Listen,
So you'll never be caught doing the thing live on Instagram?
No, I won't be caught doing that for other reasons.
I mean, he didn't mean to.
That's true. That's true.
Him and Chad Johnson, that podcast, and the fact that they
Very
just
funny.
went in detail, I was dying laughing. But those two,
Well, he first came out and said he was hacked.
as you should.
But
It's not me. It's AI.
But Shannon,
Like, I would be-
Shannon, we hear you. It's your voice.
He was like, oh, it wasn't just her moaning in the background. It was very detailed. It was very weird. How do you do
How
that?
many minutes
How do you
of
go
it did you-
live?
how many
How
minutes
do
of
you
it did you
go?
watch, Ginner?
How do you go live during that? But he lied about it right off the bat and said, "Oh yeah, I got hacked." I'm like, I don't think you did, but
I love when famous people again always say they got hacked when they just so very clearly didn't get hacked.
But it is a good out.
It's a great out. It's a great out. And sometimes I'm sure I think they didn't get hacked when they might have. But a lot of times whenever you get something tweeted or a link gets copy and pasted or whatever else that is clearly an accident but was definitely done by the person, the first thing they always go to is hacked. And I just wish people would believe me if I said I was hacked. I don't think I have enough followers. Shout out Chad Brendel to get hacked, but yeah, I mean, it'd be nice.
you should engagement farm him more. That way
maybe
you
I
could grow
will.
that. Well played, dude. Nice. All right, off the bench. No more porn talk. Sorry. We'll move
Let's
on.
go to break.
Let's go to break. We'll be right back. More off the bench next. Mother.
You make my life so difficult, Kenner.
What you have the bleep button?
I'm gonna have to find it now.
Bleep.
We're back.
I worked for a radio station that had an incident with the bleep button
Yeah, and then you miraculously left the radio station
at the same time.
at the same exact time.
Yeah, you never told me your exit strategy from radio.
That
You just
was
said I
not-
used to work in radio.
I did used to work in radio. That was not me. I was not near the situation that involved the dump button that wasn't hit. That was not me. I like to confirm that now in front of everybody.
You did put like a 2 weeks in, right?
Yeah, I gave it 2 weeks.
Okay. So you weren't fired.
I was not fired.
He was
not
asked
fired.
to put in 2 weeks after not hitting the dump button.
Huh?
I said you were asked to put in your 2
Yeah,
weeks
that's-
after not hitting the dump button.
Well, again, I had nothing to do with that. But, yeah, so.
Yeah, like, man, I've only cussed twice now. I cussed 2 weeks ago in accident on the radio. Kev caught it. But yeah, people always say, can you say that on the radio? I'm like, you could say anything on the radio once. There's some things you could say whatever you want. One time.
Yeah.
Like there's some words you say, you better make it count because you're going to get to say it once and then you're done. I haven't said any of the magical words though.
Okay. All right.
Like mother, like, none of that. None of that. So,
I don't think I have either.
last night,
Jacob might have.
yeah.
I don't think so.
Last night, Chatterbox Reds, Trace and Nick Kirby, were talking about the Reds core, right? Like, and we haven't talked like Reds in depth in a while, and that's really for our mental health more than anything else. Just because, what would we be doing right now if the Reds actually were doing what they were supposed to, sitting atop the NL Central, or at least holding down one of those wild card spots, or heaven forbid being within 1 to 2 games of a wild card spot? Like that'd be pretty wild. I don't know the last time. I mean, it's been a while since we'd be in a spot. I know, like, since working together and you guys here, I have been doing radio for 10 years, and I've never been in a position to talk about, and I'm not a Bengals fan, but it's something we talk about, the Bengals being in the playoffs, the Reds being in the playoffs, and all overlap, Ohio State being atop of their game. Doesn't happen. That'd be a very fun scenario to play out at some point, and the Reds ruined it this year.
They did. They last year they fought until the end. Last year they were in it until, I don't know, probably a week. No, I think they were still in it the very last couple of games there. They lost to the Diamondbacks, and then I think they played the Cardinals immediately after.
I think we were doing some pretty crafty math that last series to keep us in it.
I think they were like 3 back, but you couldn't lose anymore.
Right, and you
Something
needed
like
other
that.
teams to lose.
Yeah.
and, yeah.
But technically they were still alive in the last 2
Yeah.
series. So, but yeah, it's frustrating what's happened this season. It's been a disaster pretty much from the jump. Just hasn't gone our way. Ironically, the success the Reds have had this year have been against teams that are really, really good at baseball. I think we have a winning record against teams fighting for a World Series, and then we have a losing record against anybody else. So, except for the Marlins and Rockies, shout out to them. But yeah, it's been a disaster, and I think next year there's going to have to be a lot of changes. I don't think the roster is as set as we once thought. I don't think the lineup is as good as we hoped. We have Noelvi Marte out there struggling every single night, one of the worst qualified baseball players in the major leagues. You have CES, got hurt right off the jump. When he did play, he was one of the worst qualified players in baseball while he was here. You have Will Benson, who we thought could be an everyday outfielder, could be a huge part of this Reds offense, hitting below 200, hasn't been productive as a fielder or a batter. Jake Fraley's lost all of his power. He's been on the IL 5 times this year. TJ Friedel misses half the season. Jonathan India was hot for a month, and outside of that 1 month of baseball, he has been the same player he's been for the last 3 years. We have Ellie De La Cruz. That's a bright spot. Tyler Stevenson's shown that he's going to be here for a long time, or at least we want him to be here for a long time. But outside of those 2 offensive players, the Reds haven't had a ton. Spencer Steer's having a down year. It's a serviceable year. It's not a bad year by Spencer Steer. But, he's hitting like 240, 239. He's still driving in runs at a decent clip. He still has a positive WAR. But it's just not the team we all thought it would be. It's been a disappointment for sure. And as I look for next season's roster, I have a hard time believing you could keep this same exact roster as it is and hope to win baseball games consistently.
I think that's where this question might come from, and I obviously want to hear what you think too. But who is your locked-in pieces of the 2025 Reds? Not talking pitching, I'm talking lineup, outside of Ellie De La Cruz. Because obviously you hope Matt McClain is, and that's what Kirby was talking about last night. We haven't seen enough of him. But at some point as a small market team, when you get these prospects that come up and perform, you have to gamble. And I think we've seen enough of Matt McClain that I'm okay gambling on him and putting him in that core group. That's about it when it comes to guys I'm willing to gamble on still and having that core group. CES, need to see more. Marte, need to see a lot more. But I think there's 2 or 3 guys this year that have played their way into that core group. Going into the season, Tyler Stevenson was a huge question mark. And I think at this point, if you ask any Reds fan, or at least any Reds fan that's watched a lot of baseball this year, they'll all agree that he's the catcher of the future. And that was not the case coming into the season. So that's a big thing for the Reds. And then obviously, if TJ Friedel can stay healthy, I think he can talk himself into being a key piece to this Reds team when we're winning in a year or 2 down the line in center field, obviously being out there for hopefully more games than he was out there this year. But I think he's another guy that has shown that it wasn't just a one-year fluke. When he's been out there this year, he's a big deal for this team, and he affects the wins and losses. And then that's really it for me. Spencer Steer's a fine bat, and you said it this year. It's a down year, but he's still driving in runs at a pretty good clip. But where does he play? He's not a good enough defender, in my opinion, to stick him out in the outfield every day. We don't have a spot in the infield if these guys all work out like we hope they do. So I have more questions than answers about Steer in the lineup when it comes to the core. I would love to have him DH, but it feels like that's kind of a big ask to just slide him in that role every day. Outside of those 3 or 4 guys, I really don't know who else I'm immensely confident in for the long haul with this Reds team.
You have Jamir Candelario, who's supposed to be the big free agent talent. He hasn't been good. He wasn't good this year. Not to mention he's hurt right now, and the best ability, as always, is availability. He has a 280 on base percentage. He hits home runs every once in a while, so I guess he's going to be your DH. Yeah. Spencer Steer, as of right now, is your left fielder. I would like to see him at least move into the infield. I think he can play first base at a solid level. I don't think he's a great first baseman, but I don't think there's ever been like there's a couple of them in the league today, but I don't think there's a ton of great elite defensive first basemen out there that you can just go pick up. So I wouldn't mind Spencer Steer playing there. CES, there's a lot of people high on CES, and sure, there's a ton of time with a lot of these guys. I don't know how many of them we can just say are so young and have a bright future ahead of them, and that's fine. But I'm looking for wins immediately, and I don't know if Christian Encarnacion Strand gives me those right off the bat. I don't think he does. You have Noelvi Marte, who I thought could be serviceable, but let's be quite frank here. Since he was found of having steroids in his system, he hasn't been a good player at all. In fact, again, he has been the worst player on this Reds team this season. So, saying all that, we have an unsure infield, we have an unsure outfield, we have a catcher, and we have a shortstop. That's what the Reds have going into next season.
You're not willing to say we have a second baseman?
I will not say we have a second baseman.
Okay.
We haven't seen him.
Okay.
We haven't seen Matt McClain. You are 100% right that at some point you have to just hit one of these guys. You have to hit on them Because if Matt McClain's not good, we can't be the Rangers.
Right.
You can't sign $35 million players all over the field. Can't happen. You have to hit on Ellie. You have to hit on Matt McClain.
I think you have to undeniably hit on 2 to have a chance. Ellie, check the box. Done. Yeah. We hit on him. He's a superstar. He's going to be great for as long as he's here, hopefully forever. One of McClain, Noelvi, CES, I'll even throw Spencer Steer in there, has to emerge as a ironclad all-star level player at a guaranteed locked-in position in the lineup. I'm hoping that that's McClain at second, and if we're lucky, it's also Noelvi at third.
Yeah.
That's what everyone thought when he came up, and it's important to remember he's only played about 100 career Major League games. I know it hasn't been pretty, but it's still a young player who had a ton of talent in the minors, played great in a short spurt last year, and he was the key return for Luis Castillo. Like, if he doesn't work, what was that trade?
Yeah.
How does that trade look when you're trying to compete for a championship and Luis Castillo's tearing it up in Seattle? I don't know. I think I'm just more willing to put all my eggs in one basket than I think you are. And maybe that's not smart. Maybe that's dumb. And if these guys keep getting hurt, then we'll be screwed. And that's absolutely true. But I just feel like the Reds' best chance, and this isn't breaking news, the Reds' best chance is to hit on all these guys.
Yeah.
And because they're not going to go out and get big signings. Their big signings this offseason were Frankie Montas and Jeimer Candelario. I applaud them for going out and actually spending money, which they haven't done in a long time. But if Jeimer Candelario is the top outside talent you're going to bring in to supplement this roster in a year that you expected to really compete, then I don't think you are trying as hard as you should be, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't want to just sound like I'm bashing on everybody here. Spencer Steer, though I think he can be better than this. He still had 55 extra base hits this season, roughly.
Yeah.
He has 20 home runs almost. If he finishes this year with 20 home runs and 95 RBIs, that's a productive season. Ellie De La Cruz, obviously, we know what he is, but outside of those two guys, and Tyler Stevenson has improved, I just don't know what we have yet, and the question marks aren't good. The offense has been bad for a long time. It's been bad for most of this season. We thought eventually it would shift to where maybe the pitching would get worse and the offense would get better. Pitching's been solid all year long, up until the point where you lose 3 of your set starters, and really 4 of them. It's been wonderful. I mean, Fernando Cruz has tailed off towards the end here, but outside of him and maybe Justin Wilson, the bullpen's been pretty damn reliable. You have a guy like Nick Martinez, who I don't think a lot of people are going to talk about after this season.
Yeah.
At least most of the people that maybe don't watch every Reds game, don't pay attention. Nick Martinez has been one of the more important pieces on this Reds roster. I was kind of down on it because it seemed like a half in, half out type of move, maybe a Luis Cessa type thing where, we're gonna have him be in the bullpen until we need him to be a starter because we don't want to pay for a real starter.
Yeah.
He's been a dominant reliever. He's been a dominant starting pitcher. He's had multiple 7-inning starts this year. 7-inning of 1 run, 4-hit baseball. It's been incredible. I hope he's able to come back. But as for what this whole segment started as, is what's our core? I've got 2 names here, and Santiago Espinal and Ty France. I do think they might be back next year, and I'd want them back.
If they're going to play like this, they better be back.
But I don't think they're starting pieces.
Right.
They'd be great off the bench. I'd love Jake Fraley to be on this Reds team. I love Jake Fraley. And if I prefer we have a starting right fielder, maybe a right-handed bat that plays every single day with a bunch of power. I'd like that, and to have Jake Fraley coming in platoon when he's needed, I'd love that. TJ Friedl is, again, I think he's a solid center fielder, great defensively, offensively. This season he's had a down year, but again, I put an asterisk on all of these because they've all been hurt. So we'll see what we can do heading into next year. I wouldn't say my hope is 0 because the starting pitching's been incredible. It's been absolutely. Rhett Lauder's come up. He has a 0.5 ERA, 0.7 ERA. I don't know what it is, but it's been incredible. Every pitcher that's been, while they've been healthy, has been pretty solid. Frankie Montas was the worst pitcher on the staff this year, and he was still serviceable. Graham Ashcraft struggled a little bit, and that was sad to see. But he's going to be replaced. We have enough arms down in the minor leagues to fix all that. I'm looking at probably you'll sign a couple relievers, a couple of cheap relievers, And the big thing I want is an outfield bat. I want one right-handed outfield everyday power bat that we can put out there, switch hitting or right-handed hitting. That's what I would want out there. My name is Santander, but if that's not attainable due to the probably $30 million contract he's going to get,
Maybe more,
then we'll have to settle elsewhere. But either way, we need somebody out there that can cement the outfield because we don't have that yet. Third base, it'll be a work in progress next year. It'll probably be a fight between CES and Noelvi to see who starts, because I have a hard time believing they're both going to be here on the opening day roster next season.
What were you going to say? No, you're good.
No, I was just going to say, obviously there's a lot of holes in that Reds lineup if we're only naming 3 guys for the core. What's the number for you? You already said you want a power outfielder. What's the number for you when it comes to offseason additions? Not dollar amount necessarily. I'm going to give the Reds the benefit of the doubt here, but offseason additions, what pieces do you need? What level of player do you need in which spot to feel good about the Reds going into next season? Trying to keep that number below like 5 or 6. You know what I mean?
So we need. I'd like 2 outfielders.
Yeah,
I'd like to.
I 100% agree.
I'd like 2 outfielders, because I'd like the versatility of Spencer Steer being able to play the infield when he can. I'd like one more infielder. Because Jamir Candelario, respectfully, can't defend.
Could that infielder be an Espinal or a France as a depth piece?
As a depth piece, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess hypothetically it could, but again, I need production every single day. So maybe I would settle for a third baseman if we went out and got that. I'm looking for 3 free agents. I want 3 free agent bats this offseason. Will I get that? Probably not. But that's what I want. If retaining Ty France and Santiago Espinal are the moves we make, if those are the only moves we make, I'm going to be upset. If we add a couple guys and add those guys back, then we're great. Then I feel better. Because I still don't believe there's a ton. We need a backup catcher.
Yeah.
But outside of a couple pieces, I do think they have enough. Starting pitching wise is you could talk me into not getting a starting pitcher.
I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either.
Kirby brought that up last night too.
You can talk me into that because I do think they have enough talent there and they have depth there as well to where you'll have enough to hopefully finish a season this time. Bullpen relievers, I think that's wishy-washy. I almost think it's a 50-50 shot of whether or not your bullpen's good if you're a small market team. This year I thought they were pretty damn good until the end when they were forced to start every game. But nonetheless, yeah, there's maybe a couple relievers we might need to add if we lose Nick Martinez and a couple of those guys. But I do think the roster is somewhat close. The offense just has to show up. The offense has to be there. They have to perform outside of Ellie De La Cruz. And I don't know and that's the part I'm concerned about. I don't know about Matt McClain. I don't know about CES. I don't know about Noelvi Marte. There's a lot of I don't know about this guy, and you can't have that if you hope to get to the postseason.
We hoped this year's purpose would be to remove those I don't knows at the very least.
Correct.
And if anything, I think we have more than the end of last season, which is a very tough place to be for a team who really, quite honestly, just doesn't know how big their window is.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can be for sure how big their window is because we thought Noelvi Marte, who hit 300 last year, was going to come up and be fine this year. We didn't obviously think Matt McClain was going to get hurt. So this window could open and shut on a yearly basis, basically.
Yeah.
And you need to just attack it when you can. And that's why I'm kind of coming around on the people that are more and more mad about how the Reds handled last year's trade deadline because they were up at the All-Star break. And I was all in the camp the whole time that you don't go all in with this young roster. You need to give time to develop and you attack a more strategic window down the line. But who knows if that opportunity will ever come. They might be kicking themselves for last year for a long time. And right about now is really the first time I've seen that side of the argument make a little bit of sense to me.
So that's why, too, like when people say, like last year when they were up atop the division and in first place and all that stuff at the All-Star break, everyone just assumed, well, if we're here now with all these rookies, man, this is us moving forward.
Yeah.
You can't just assume that. That's why I don't like when the Reds front office plays games of like, well, no, I kind of like where we're at right now. Well, you're not promised to get back here. Like, it's not just about who the Reds are right now. It's about what the division is. I mean, you look at the National League, it took a huge shift. Obviously, the Dodgers have always been good, but you get Shohei Ohtani. That totally changes the landscape of the National League moving forward. If you just break it down to the Central, I mean, how much longer are the Cubs going to be down? How much longer are the Cardinals going to be down? The Brewers are there. I don't think they're one of the best teams we've seen in the Central in the last decade plus, but I mean, they're there. And the Pirates are up and coming. So when we base everything off who the Reds are now, the Reds can be significantly better a year from now. They could be 10 times better than they are now 2 years from now. But the Central could build up, and they'd be right back where we are now record-wise, and it's like, man, they didn't capitalize on where the division was at that time. Sometimes it's not just about who you are roster-wise at that time. It's about where you sit within the division. That's the thing, too, that could be so unpredictable. You alluded to this earlier, Jacob. Last night, Chatterbox Reds, Kirby and Trace also talked about this. Chase Petty getting promoted to AAA feels like a sign that the Reds are not going to add any starting pitching this offseason. Some people have mixed emotions on that. The strength of this team has been pitching, and the weakness of the pitching has been injuries. So you can't go in fearing injuries. So if you go in knowing that when these guys are healthy, how talented this rotation and this bullpen and the pitching staff is, I love the fact that the Reds are going to have to be in position to spend money in the offseason, because that means they're going to spend money on guys that will make an impact every single game versus, oh, man, we need pitching. We need to go spend a lot of money on a guy that'll play once every 5 days. I think that's a good spot for the Reds to be in. People freaking out that the Reds, based on this tweet, how are they not going to add pitching? I don't want them to add pitching. I like their pitching. If you're going to spend money, go spend money on guys that will make an impact on a game every single night, as opposed to guys once every 5 nights when the pitching is fine at this point. Is at least considering all the deficiencies they have. I don't think this is one that even needs to be talked about. Pitching.
And where do the Reds play? They play in Great American Ballpark.
Yep.
It's impossible to sign a top-level free agent pitcher to come and pitch for you. It's not something they want to do. It's going to diminish their value because any pitcher is not going to be their best in a small ballpark like that. That's why we continue to draft pitchers early in the draft, and it's already paying dividends with how good Rhett Lauder's looked. He's looked phenomenal through his first few starts of his career, and hopefully it's going to be the same thing for Chase Burns coming up and contributing to the rotation next year. But even if we're waiting on him for a little bit, Lodolo, Green, Abbott, Lauder, and Petty, or Williamson, these are phenomenal names to have in your rotation. Phenomenal names. I'm very excited about this Reds rotation, and it definitely doesn't need an outside addition for me to be happy. I would almost be a little bit upset about signing a starting pitcher when you look at it from what we expect the Reds to do. There's a certain amount of money that the Reds are going to be willing to spend. And if you put that money into the starting pitching rotation, will it be better? Maybe, probably. That's great. But I think this team benefits way more from putting that, I don't know, $40 million or so that you're willing to spend this offseason into the lineup, into players in the lineup. That's what's going to make this team better. That's what's going to make this team compete quicker. And I think the pitching showed this year that they have pieces to be competitive the entirety of the year. I know injuries have been a tough thing for them, but they've been really good, and that's basically everybody for the entirety of the season, especially when they're in the roles they're supposed to play, talking about the bullpen. So I don't think a whole lot of external additions are necessary. I would love to keep the guys we have, like Nick Martinez, Jacob Junis. I think those would both be phenomenal guys to keep in the bullpen, but I want the money for the Reds this offseason to go into the lineup.
It cost the Reds $14 million roughly. I think that's the number. $14 million to sign Frankie Montas. Frankie Montas wasn't a good pitcher. He wasn't a good pitcher. No team was wanting to sign Frankie Montas to a $20 million deal, but I think he actually had a $20 million option if they wanted to bring him back for the next season. But nonetheless, $14 million for a below-average pitcher who hadn't pitched in a long, long time. $14 million, which means if you want a serviceable Sonny Gray type pitcher, you're probably doling out $20 million at least.
Right.
$20 million at least. And if you're going to do that, and again, hypothetically in fantasy land, do I want the Reds to spend as much money as possible in every position? Yes, I do. But realistically, I know they're not going to do that. I know they're not going to spend money. So if I say that, then I'm looking for them to spend money where I think needs the most help, and where they need the most help is in the lineup. They need somebody who can hit for power. We haven't had a ton of power in our lineup in a long, long time. I'd like an outfielder every day. That's not the platoon game. I want a set, designated right fielder that can hit for a lot of home runs. That's what I want. That's where I want the money to go. I agree with Jacob.
NFL Power Rankings coming up here in a little bit. We'll also get into some Cincinnati Bengals talk again. I know you guys are huge Browns fans, but the Browns and the Bengals both coming off Week 1 losses. Which team desperately needs a Week 2 win more? We'll get to that coming up. I know people, the must-win thing gets thrown around a lot. and sometimes way too prematurely. But the week is week 2 a must-win game for the Bengals. We have that coming up later on in the show as well. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll dive into some NFL power rankings when we come back. We'll throw out my power rankings. You guys react. How would you change it? What teams did you add, move around? Which team's missing? We'll get to all of that coming up. More Off the Bench next.
Oh! In Casey's seat, which means I have to do Casey's job, which is reading the ads and paying the bills. I don't think I'm going to do it as good, but I'm certainly going to try. So the Bengals Report coming up right around the corner is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore Technologies, we deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world, from mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions. We help businesses enhance efficiency and
productivity.
That's right, Ellie Roo / Jimbo.
Thank you.
Visit encore.tech, where your path to innovation begins
Where?
right here. And it feels good to finally be sitting in that starting point.
Yes.
I've never done that ad read from this year.
Yes.
Yeah, right here where I'm at. Pawnee Water. This beautiful, fresh, not old at all Pawnee Water bottle.
Oh, that looked good.
Love it.
That
love
looked
it.
delicious.
PAHHNI, Pawnee Water. It says it right here on the bottle. The best tasting water in the world, and that's not a lie. That's not a lie, Elliot.
Nope.
I'm going to tell you what I did yesterday.
What?
On my way home from work, I stopped at the gas station. It was a hot day. It was cold when we came in, but it was hot when we left.
It was warm.
Stopped at the gas station on the way home, and I went
Temperate.
inside and I looked for a Pawnee Water, because it's the best tasting water in the world. And you know what they had? They only had water with rocks in it.
Are you serious?
No natural limestone filtration.
Are you serious?
None of the best tasting water in the world.
They
Just
didn't
this
fil-
second-rate rock water.
They didn't filtrate they didn't filtrate the rocks?
Not one bit. Not one bit. And that's why I was so happy to get here this morning and have my Pawnee. So go to pawneewater.com, get some of the best tasting water in the world for yourself. Finally, thank you to Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing sponsor of Off the Bench. They help us go to many events. We always use Game Time to buy our tickets. They have the lowest prices, all the upfront fees, no surprises, nothing like that. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. These Game Time Picks filter out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through the tickets. The super deals are incredible. They show you exactly how you're going to save the most amount of money, and they have some great deals for the Bengals Week 3 game against the Commanders. I was looking at that. Ring of Honor night, pretty cheap to get in there. The Bengals starting slow is driving those ticket prices down, so pounce on them all you can before we beat the Chiefs this weekend, and then go watch some primetime football in Paycor Stadium. Use the app's features such as customizing your spot to find exactly where you want to sit with 360 views from every seat, all-in pricing, seat views, like I just said, and the lowest price guarantee from Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you can find lower prices elsewhere. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Hey, Elliot.
Yeah?
What time is it?
That would be Game Time.
That's right. Kinner, what time is it?
It's game time.
That's right. It sure is. Use Game Time for all your ticket buying needs. Code OTB for $20 off. Other housekeeping, Chatterbox Bengals tonight, 7 p.m. 7 to 8 p.m. tonight. We're going to do Chatterbox Bengals, and we're going to break down Week 2. We're moving on from Week 1. No more Patriots talk. We're going to talk about where the holes are in the Chiefs' defense, where the Bengals can attack it, go through some of the press conferences from the week, and any updates from practice today. So you're not going to want to miss it. We'll be live on Chatterbox YouTube at 7 o'clock, and then shortly after we're finished, it'll be posted everywhere that you listen to podcasts. So make sure to check it out today, whether it's live or you download it later. Chatterbox Bengals, you can find it everywhere. Any other housekeeping going on in here, Elliot?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it. There will be a Chatterbox Reds today.
That's right.
Because the Reds will be playing early. But other than that, I don't think that's it. I think that's it. I think our house is kept.
Game Time, I just
Like the stream.
That's right.
You talked about the Commanders game when they play the Commanders. I'm finding way more tickets that are cheaper to go watch an actual game there than to go to the watch party game for the game this weekend. So just
It's a
for
thing.
those of you who are clutching your dollars, save it for that
go watch
Commanders
the
game
real
using
football.
Game Time. I typed in Bengals watch party on Game Time. They didn't have it there, but the Commanders tickets, $80, a couple nice little
Love that.
solidly priced tickets.
80 bucks for primetime football, Ring of Honor night. Can't complain about that. It's pretty
No.
good. So use Game Time, get out there and go watch the Bengals play. Hopefully get a win.
Game time. Whoo.
We're not on radio, but do we still want to run the stinger anyway to send it back? Make
Yeah.
it feel real?
Yeah, why not?
All
Yeah.
right.
Be
We'll
official.
Make it feel real. And we're back.
Because Elliot's a very, very, very close friend of mine. We've been friends our entire 2 months of knowing each other.
That's right.
I moved the mic.
Thank you.
You seem more relaxed.
Well, it has to be much better for you because you're not leaning forward like a
It was
weirdo.
fine.
I
like,
just-
like this was such a you problem. More
I don't
than it
think
was a me
so.
problem. But it's okay because as long as I'm one of those I
Yeah.
want everyone around me to be comfortable. So I'll
Well, I
here I am
appreciate it. I appreciate-
sacrificing my happiness. I'm actually more uncomfortable now.
I
than was
appreciate it.
before.
I appreciate your uncomfort to satisfy me. Thank you very much.
I'm going to have to try the Kinner stance when I'm back in that chair.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the mic right between my legs, just lean over.
I can't
See how
believe
it
this
feels.
became a thing. I was just trying to just be comfortable,
I don't think it was
Loose.
comfortable. I don't think it was
Loose.
comfort.
It's all in the
I
hips.
think you were struggling. Jacob's chair, the one that he's in right now, that's the most comfortable one here. I don't know. We can't unlock all the features that chair has right now because you have to get up and use screwdrivers and stuff.
It's preposterous.
But it can lay completely horizontal. That's how good that chair is over there.
Yeah.
It's essentially a bed.
I think this is the perfect chair because I like those chairs a lot, but I think they're too comfortable.
I agree.
I start to slouch a little bit if I'm tired. I didn't get a good night's rest before.
Too comfortable.
I get a little tired in there. Over here, I'm sitting upright in an office chair. I feel like I'm at work. Feel like I got a lot of stuff going on. Overstimulated a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
I'm on my toes over here.
Is it a waste management hat? What is that hat
It is
up
not.
there?
Huega House, Aaron Rodgers brand.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I got distracted. Apparently, all the studio shows in Los Angeles, there's another earthquake. You know how many times I see these live shows interrupted by earthquakes?
Oh, yeah.
The only thing that we've been interrupted by is that awful fly from yesterday.
Horrible fly.
And then when the heat went out. I think that's way worse than earthquakes.
Was it the heat or the air
the
conditioning?
air conditioning? Sorry, the air conditioning went
The
out.
air conditioning going out
I could see
might
sitting in
have
this
been
chair.
the hardest thing I've ever went through.
Yeah, it was
in my
miserable.
entire life.
This chair, so with my laptop on my lap, and then just the heat that my body puts
Yeah.
off, it's trapped between both sides of this chair. I could
Yeah.
feel the heat just trapped. I can't imagine that day that the air went out.
No.
How you two were feeling.
Brutal.
My back was a swamp. I think I said it on the show, but that leather chair was Velcro to my back. I mean, sticking right to it. I had to pry the shirt off after the show. It was
Yeah.
absolutely brutal. And Casey labeled the chairs for us.
I was just looking back. I was like, whose name is on this chair? But,
Jacob.
Keeping it warm for you as far as that goes. So I'm with you. You talked about the Bengals. Just done with the. I never want to hear about the Bengals Patriots game again. We can move on.
I'm with you.
From week one. I know we're going to do power rankings now heading into week two. So it'll be the last of referencing. Week one as far as that's concerned. The only thing that caught my attention about week one was I know we talked earlier in the week about 18 quarterbacks threw for under 200 yards in the first half, or in the first week of the season. And of course, I can't find it now. The graphic. Hold on, I think I have it right here. Sorry. So it was here. It is the week one passing touchdowns. What is leading to the continuous drop in offensive production in week one? Because I know it's the easy answer is what teams do in preseason, but preseason has been something that coaches and organizations have been trying to juggle forever. It's not something new. The preseason's not new or different. There might be new approaches. But in 2019, there was 61 week one touchdowns across the league. There was 52 in 20. It went back to 61 in 21, 57 in 2022. There was 37 first week one passing touchdowns last year, which was a low, a historic low, and that got broke this year. So 35. There was 35 passing touchdowns in week one. And the question I have is we talk all the time about how quarterback play has never been better in today's NFL. I mean, across the board. I mean, there's some bad ones. I would know. There's some really bad ones in the league. But, like, 35 total passing touchdowns across the board. I know it's easy just to say it's week one. Teams a little rusty coming out of preseason. But in 2019, these same teams are coming out of preseason and 61 touchdowns was considered rusty. The game has continuously increased to more of a passing league as each year continues to go on and on and on. I'm just taken back by that. Kind of curious your guys' thoughts. In the last 6 seasons, 35 touchdowns, the lowest amount of total passing touchdowns in week one, this past week one, compared to 61 back in 19.
I think it's become, the NFL has become such a make sure everybody's okay by the last week. I think you're playing the long game when you start these seasons. You're trying to keep everybody healthy and happy, especially now with the added on games. You have more games than ever, especially if you were to be a wild card team. You're playing a ton of games in an NFL season. There's no need to rush out of the gates and score 50 points on your week one opponent. Shout out to the Saints. He did it anyway. But I think Jacob's right a little bit when you talk about week one doesn't really matter. It matters. Every game in the NFL matters because there's only, 17 of them? Is there 17 now?
Yeah.
And I get that sentiment, but at the same time, I've always been a guy where, especially if you're cheering for the Cincinnati Bengals, a Cincinnati franchise that's never won a Super Bowl, I want to win as many games as possible and have the best chance I can to win playoff games. And that means obviously getting the 1 seed now, where you get the bye. It's the only bye seed that there is in today's game. So I don't think I'm shocked by it. I think that nobody's trying to win an MVP week one. Nobody's trying to win the Super Bowl week one. You're just trying to survive and advance until your team's fully amped up and ready to go as these seasons go on. So yeah, I'm not shocked by it. I'm not surprised by it. Everybody's just trying to stay as healthy as possible until the postseason.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, no, my bad.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's why I'm not so quick to jump to blaming Zach Taylor and the coaching staff for not valuing the preseason and only playing the guys for one drive, because I think at the end of the day, it could be beneficial. You don't want to start 0-1, 0-2 or whatever, but I think it's going to be very beneficial for the Bengals if they are healthy. Everyone wants to point to Jamar Chase's holdout as such a big distraction, but what if he would have gotten hurt in training camp running around? What if he would have strained his hamstring as well with T. Higgins and had one of those soft tissue injuries? I think even though you want to start hot because it gives you a chance at the 1 seed, it gives you a chance at all these home playoff games, all these big-time goals that we've been talking about with this team, I don't think that it takes away that the biggest goal, the final goal, and it might actually set the team up for a little bit more success down the line if you were able to prevent injuries. And the thing that really hurts is that they weren't. If you're going to do this later preseason, you have to prevent the injuries. And T. Higgins being hurt, missing a week, seems like going to miss 2, not at practice yesterday. And then Myles Murphy obviously hurt in preseason game. These are key pieces to your team that are getting hurt in a lighter preseason, one of the lightest off seasons in the entire NFL by amongst all reports, according to any coach or any player. Zach Taylor is one of the most player-friendly coaches in the league when it comes to off-season curriculum, and I just don't know how long you can keep that up if it's not working. If it was working, and I think it did work for 2 years when they made the Super Bowl and they made the AFC Championship. Those slow starts didn't matter, and maybe it would have worked last year if Joe Burrow was healthy, but I have a hard time believing that. We'll see how this season shakes out, but if they can't turn it around quickly and still achieve a lot of the goals people expected in the preseason, then I think Zach Taylor's seat's going to be pretty hot on opening day next year.
It's weird to say preseason games impact it this much, but like I'm looking at when the numbers started dipping, it correlates right when they switched to 3 preseason games. I have no clue if that's the direct impact there, but in all seriousness, 2022, so 2021 they started the 3 preseason games. All right, in 2022 it goes down 4 total touchdowns in week 1, and then it went down 20 touchdowns in 23, and it went down 2 more additional touchdowns for week 1 this past year. Like it used to be, the format was the first preseason game you play about a quarter. The second preseason game, you get a couple snaps in the first possessions in the first preseason game. Second preseason game, you play a half or a full quarter, and then you play an entire half for the third preseason game, and then you sit all your starters for the fourth preseason game, and then you're off and rolling. it's like teams just trying to find that magical sauce with this 3 preseason games. I don't know if preseason has this much impact, but I'm really looking at this. It's like the second they went to 3 preseason games is when these numbers started dipping off tremendously in week 1 production. So I don't know if it's all that, but the correlation of when they switched to 3 preseason games and as the numbers have dipped tremendously in total passing touchdowns in week 1, there seems to be something there.
I'd be curious to see if the rushing numbers are greater.
Yeah, because this is passing. Yeah, you're right.
Correct. So
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like I feel because right around 2021 is when when did the Browns sign Watson? Was right around there, right?
It would have been right before a couple months before the season.
So it would have that's because that really did change the quarterback market. And I think as teams look around at their $55 million quarterbacks, if you have a top quarterback in the league, you're paying over $50 million a year. You're protecting your investment. And nobody wants their quarterback to come out throwing 50 times week 1. Now, occasionally it happens out of necessity, but I would say a majority of teams are probably going to use the let's milk the clock, let's run the football, make some good plays, but we're just trying to have a low-scoring victory here. We're not trying to exert too much energy. And I imagine that's probably what's happening. So I'd be curious to see what the rushing numbers are because I'd imagine those are up since 2021 because teams are just trying to, I don't want to say milk the clock, but they're trying to probably control the clock more as they are trying to get out and blow out teams.
And ease into it more, obviously. So, all right, let's transition over to power rankings week 1.
Ooh.
Heading into week 2. Let me ask you, if you two were to put your power rankings up, not what teams would you – what is it just based on week 1 performances? Is it based on, the teams that you thought would be in the top 10 coming into week 1 and maybe shifting it a little bit after week 1? Because the Cincinnati Bengals would have been easily in my preseason power rankings heading into week 1, if that makes sense. Obviously, they didn't look good. I don't know if I would have not – they're not in my top 10 right now. But so that's why I'm trying to gauge it. Just based on week 1, how would you guys build yours?
This isn't the AP poll. We're not doing college football rankings. These are after you play a game, then we find out who's good and who's not good. Fair enough. After 1 week, this is what I would decide who's on my top 10.
All right, fair enough. So we'll pop that up on the screen. My power rankings as we wrapped up week 1 heading in to week 2. I don't think there's anything controversial in there by any means. I think Kansas City, I believe, would be the favorite to be at the top of everyone's power rankings at this point. I think the fact that they came out, and we've seen teams who win Super Bowls, and they come out and have that Super Bowl hangover. Obviously, back-to-back years where the last year you could have said maybe the Super Bowl hangover had an impact on their slow start. Maybe it was not having Jones. Who knows? But bottom line is to win at home and to do it in a classic against Baltimore, I thought that was a tremendous start to the season, and to just see how different the offense looked, how much faster and how dynamic the offense looked, which is scary because last year was one of the slowest offenses in the league, and they go on to win a Super Bowl. So I have Kansas City coming in at number 1 with the Niners coming in at 2. This has pretty much been the power rankings for most power rankings for going on a year, 2 years now, especially with these top 3 teams with Kansas City, San Francisco, Philadelphia. I was a little kind of hesitant on Philadelphia, but again, that's a good Green Bay team. I know, obviously Jordan Love got hurt, but I thought Jalen Hurts looked improved from 1 year, but it's all about the defense with the Philadelphia Eagles. A.J. Brown looked fantastic, and then, of course, the addition to Saquon Barkley. You got to love what the Eagles have there. So I have the Chiefs, Niners, Eagles, 1, 2, and 3. And then, again, the team that I'm the highest on coming into the year, I love the Houston Texans. I love their makeup. I love the balance of the pass and the run, and then the improved defense, of course. I thought they looked really impressive. Of course, Joe Mixon, who we talked about yesterday, I don't expect 150-plus yards a game from him moving forward. But if that is the case, that he totally changes the dynamic of the run game to balance out the run pass, I think Houston is even going to be better than I thought, and I'm very high on them to begin with. Baltimore, I really liked. Baltimore completes that pass into the back to Lively in the back of the end zone, and they go to overtime. There's a good chance they come away with that win as well. I'm not going to penalize them for that loss against Kansas City after week 1. I believe that, that's the only team I have in my top 10 that experienced a loss. But to be honest, I wasn't a big fan of how they kind of went away from Derrick Henry late in the game. But at the end of the day, Baltimore wins football games. they lost that football game, but I thought that, it was neck and neck. If that's the rematch in the AFC Championship game, Baltimore proved that the Chiefs are 1A, the Baltimore look like 1B in that particular situation. I'm still going to be high on the Ravens, at least as we sit here coming out of week 1. I like the Lions. Lions, looked very solid, no doubt about it. That very entertaining game, Sunday Night Football. I have them at 6. The Cowboys, dominating defensive performance against Cleveland. Everyone was talking about how bad Deshaun was, how bad Cleveland was, and they absolutely were atrocious, but got to give a lot credit to the Cowboys and Zimmer's defense. I thought that complemented by CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott after Dak's announcement on Sunday with the record-setting contract. I thought Dallas looked very solid. I still got to be high in Miami for the time being. Do I trust them long-term? Do I trust them in the back half of the season? I do not. But Tua, on multiple occasions throughout his career, has looked like an MVP candidate through the first 8 weeks of the season when he's healthy, and then he dips off. He looked great. Tyreek Hill looked solid after getting arrested that morning.
Oh, yeah.
And then the defense for Miami, solid as well. Buffalo, I thought it got interesting after 8. I thought it was interesting to put teams at 9 and 10. I like Buffalo. I like Josh Allen. I thought what he did was probably one of the more impressive performances of the weekend. 4 total touchdowns, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. He doesn't have a whole lot of support in the pass game, but he's finding ways to make plays. I think Buffalo, a very well-rounded team. I still don't trust their defense, but I thought they looked solid on both sides of the ball, so I put them at 9 because I really like Josh Allen. And you can't go wrong with Tampa. I think Tampa had one of the easier victories of the weekend, a dominating victory. Baker looked solid. The defense looked great. I know they played Washington, but I got Tampa Bay coming in at number 10.
Interesting. I will say you have the Ravens 1-0 up there.
I didn't put 1-0.
Ravens 1-0.
Neither did Jacob. Let's make that very clear.
So
hold on. I'm acting like Shedeur Sanders over here. All right.
So
the people at ESPN have producers who put 0-1.
Who should we throw under the bus?
I'm not throwing Casey. I'll take this bullet. Maybe I wrote 0-1 or 1-0 when I sent that. So my apologies. I'll take the bullet.
Yeah, that's good.
I love Casey. I'm going to take the bullet. I put 1-0, Casey. Technically, I didn't send any record. You have to put a record in there according to the graphic template.
That is true. He's bound by the constraints of Canva.
Interesting. So I agree with most of it. I think that the Dolphins probably near the back end, the Bills near the back end's fine. I think once you get after 10 is when I think it's a crapshoot. I think anybody can be anywhere after that, especially after week 1. I would have had the Lions higher than the Ravens. I would have had the Cowboys way higher than the Ravens.
Just because Baltimore lost?
Correct. Yeah, I think it's if you lose the game. And by the way, they did lose it in a way that's kind of outrageous, but nonetheless, they still lost the game. They did enough to win technically, but they did lose it. The Cowboys would have been my third best team of the week. I would have had Chiefs 49ers 1-2. I don't think there's any arguments there. I would have had Cowboys 3. I would have had Lions 4. I would have had Texans 5, and then I would have had probably Eagles 6. I think a lot of people are out on the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't really know why. I know what happened last year with the collapse and whatever went on in that locker room. But nonetheless, they're a damn good football team, and I think the Eagles are going to have a really good chance of winning.
If it's gone, so a little inside baseball. Now I can't see it, so there it is. I like the Chiefs and Niners at 1-2. I think that's clear. Anyone with anything different, I think, probably didn't watch the games on Sunday. The Niners looked almost unbeatable.
You're a little busy.
You're
a little busy on Sundays.
Against a very, very good Jets team. The Chiefs looked great against a Ravens team that would be in my top 10. I don't know if I'd have them at 5, but they would definitely be in my top 10. The Eagles, I don't even know if the Eagles would be in my top 10. They certainly wouldn't be in my top 5. I thought Jalen Hurts looked terrible. He was one of the worst PFF-graded quarterbacks this week. I think the O-line really struggled without Jason Kelce. The tush-push got stopped once out of 3 times, which is a crazy rate compared to what they've been hitting at lately. The Texans were really good, but I think that's more a reflection of what I think of the Colts. I would have the Cowboys and Lions at 3 and 4, and then I would have the Ravens at 5. I think the Buccaneers at 10 is a great pick. They would certainly be in my top 10 as well. John Silvani made a great joke in the chat that Baker's the best quarterback in the league, and I don't know that I'd necessarily go that far, but I think he is very good, and he's going to give that Bucs team a chance to win. Rashad White has a lot of talent, and Bucky Irving looked really good as a rookie running back out of Oregon. So I think they're a team to watch. I was really high on the Falcons coming into the season, but not so sure that the Bucs aren't going to win that division. They look pretty sound on both sides of the ball. I like the rankings. We're going to see which of those 8 and 9 teams belong up here tonight because only one of them does, in my opinion.
All right, and again, obviously, I'll be releasing these weekly, of course, and I'm very fascinated to see what week 2 brings, just to see which of those, if I could go back, I probably would move the Eagles out. I'm like I said, I'm just higher on Houston than you guys. I'd probably put Houston up to 3. Baltimore's just I get, and I saw Everett said I'm giving Baltimore a participation trophy, but in the NFL too, like a lot of it is it's not that you lose, it's how you lose. Like I don't think Baltimore feels. I mean, they want that win. Lamar, from a legacy standpoint, wants to pilot. He needs to start winning against Patrick Mahomes, no doubt. But I don't think any Baltimore Ravens fan out there watched that game and was like, "Crap, we're not that good." Cleveland fans feel horrible. Bengals fans feel horrible right now. Baltimore lost by possession. Like if Cincinnati loses by a toe, if Cincinnati loses in that exact same fashion against Kansas City, I promise you, we're going to come in. I think we talked about this last week about it's not that you lose, it's how you lose. If they come in, if we come in Monday and the Bengals lose exactly the way that the Ravens did, I still think the morale in this room, even with an 0-2 start, is going to be through the roof.
They'd be in my top 10.
Yeah,
If the Bengals lost to the Chiefs,
I guess I'm comparing it to that. But we don't like Baltimore. I get that too. I still don't like how they handled the Derrick Henry thing early on too. But I still, at the end of the day, Baltimore was winning before Derrick Henry. Yeah. So I that's why I have them in there. But I do think people's complaints are fair as far as that goes. I probably was too high on the Eagles. Yeah. So
the Eagles were number 1 in the NFL's power rankings list. So if anyone's too high on the Eagles, it's them, not you.
Detroit. I don't know why I don't go all in on them. I love Detroit. I love their coach. I love everything about him until I have to make a rankings list like this. And I'm like, I don't know why. I just can't seem to go higher than 6. Am I the only one that has that holdup with them? What is Detroit's flaw? Why are they not being given more respect? Because honestly, the defense is fantastic. The offense is electric. I'm just as guilty of it. Why do so many people kind of give them that little resistance then?
I think it's a young secondary. They're relying on a lot of rookies and a lot of second-year guys to bolster that secondary, which was one of the worst in the league last year. Drafting Terrion Arnold in the first round out of Alabama paired him with Brian Branch, who they took a year ago. Getting an Alabama defensive backfield there is usually a pretty smart way to go if you look at NFL history, and hopefully it pays off for them. But Enos Rakestraw out of Mizzou, also a second-round pick that they took this year, is going to play a lot at corner for them. Kirby Joseph is a veteran in the safety room, but he's been up and down his entire career. I think it's a worry about the secondary because the pass rush has been phenomenal. Aiden Hutchinson is incredible. The addition of DJ Reader, Bengals fans know exactly how good he is. They might have the best backfield in the entire NFL with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 incredibly talented running backs that I firmly believe could both start on a bunch of NFL teams, and they match each other's strengths perfectly. Jahmyr Gibbs is a little bit lighter, a little bit more frail, a speed back that dominates the outside and in the receiving game, and David Montgomery is a perfect short yardage goal line back. I love Jared Goff in the system. If Jameson Williams can do more of what we saw in week 1 and be a legitimate wide receiver 2, then the loss of Josh Reynolds, which was a big worry for me, isn't going to be a worry at all because Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be able to play in the slot. You're going to have a dominant outside receiver. I really think the Lions are a really, really good team. I picked the Packers in the preseason to win that division, but now with Jordan Love potentially –
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Potentially missing some time. Interesting with that, Matt LaFleur said that he's not ruling Jordan Love out for this week yet.
Yeah, everyone thought he would be put on the IR, which would be an automatic 4-week stint, not even available. That caught people's attention when he wasn't announced as going on that list. And then, of course, that came out about LaFleur saying, don't rule him out for this week. That's a wild turn of events.
They're going to rock with Malik Willis this week. Who knows if he's going to be able to tread water. He certainly hasn't looked great in his NFL career, but I know they met with Ryan Tannehill as well. If Jordan Love's going to be out for some time, I think they're going to find someone better than Willis to fill that slot and hopefully be okay in the NFC. I think the biggest winners of week 1 are probably the Lions with that Jordan Love injury, just because the Bears offense didn't look good. We know what to expect out of the Vikings, and if the Packers can lose 3 or 4 games without Jordan Love, then I think the Lions are coasting to an NFC North victory. The first time they've won back-to-back divisions, it would have to be ever, right? Because last year was their first division win.
Yeah. So
that'd be huge for them, and I think Dan Campbell and those coaches are good enough to get that done. I think something people don't talk about enough with the Lions especially is everyone knows their roster is great. You can talk about the Pro Bowlers and the great young talent, but they've had both of the same coordinators there on a competitive team for a long time. Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson have been calling plays there for at least the last 3 years when they've been competitive with Dan Campbell, and they've had offers to go elsewhere and be head coaches, and they want to stay in Detroit, whether that's money or comfort or whether they just don't want to take on the extra responsibilities with being a head coach. I'm not sure what it is, but having that kind of continuity in your coaching staff is absolutely crucial for trying to win a championship. We've pointed to it in Cincinnati, keeping Brian Callahan and Lou Anarumo from that Super Bowl run. They've been able to do it for a little bit longer, obviously not getting to a Super Bowl yet, but an NFC championship last year. I think the Lions are gonna have a very, very good year, and I wouldn't expect them to slip up too often. There's just not a lot of holes.
You mentioned Ben Johnson. I had this in my notes too. Like, thinking about the Lions, I was shocked he didn't take a job last year. Who were you more surprised? I know this is more of like an off-season question, but like Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, who were you more surprised to not end up with the head coach? And you could even throw technically Bill Belichick, even though the more you think about it, really ended up not being that shocked that he didn't get a job when you look at how offensive-minded the league is. But who were you more surprised to not get a starting job or a head coaching job, Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson?
For me, it would be Ben Johnson. I was floored that Vrabel didn't get a coaching job. I'm not saying I wasn't shocked by that, but what have we seen the NFL turn into in the last decade or so? It's an offensive-driven league with offensive head coaches. I mean, the Bengals hired Zach Taylor as a QB's coach who never called plays in the NFL before to come be their head coach because he was a young offensive mind that was exciting and you could build a core around on the offensive side of the football and put up a lot of points. Ben Johnson's the best at that right now. He's the best offensive coordinator in the league now that Mike McDaniel got hired from the Niners to be the head coach of the Dolphins. I think he's the second best play caller in the league behind McDaniel. He's a phenomenal coach, a great offensive mind, and I said it last year, but I guess I'll say it again this year. I'll be shocked if he's not somewhere else at the end of this season. I don't know how long you can just take marginal increases on your offensive coordinator salary before you want to chase dreams yourself. So he's going to be a head coach somewhere eventually. I just don't know when. I think if the Lions win a Super Bowl or are able to go out on top, he'll definitely get out of there and go elsewhere. But if they lose, maybe he's just so committed to Dan Campbell and that roster that he's willing to stay. I don't know. It would be a pretty cool story to follow, but I would imagine that he's a head coach much sooner rather than later.
We wrap up week one talk here. Joe Mixon, Jordan Mason, J.K. Dobbins, the top three leading rushers in the NFL after week one. Which one of those running backs had the most impressive performance last week?
That's exactly the three running backs I expected to lead the league rushing after week
Right.
one.
Oh, yeah.
I think Jordan Mason probably the most impressive performance. Joe Mixon, obviously phenomenal numbers on the ground, but 33 touches. I'm not trying to take anything away from a 150-yard NFL game, but 33 touches when you were known to be the feature back to me is not nearly as impressive as Jordan Mason doing what he did in the Niners offense. Them not losing a single step, losing Christian McCaffrey, whether he found out on Sunday morning or Friday night, that's semantics. That's not a lot of time to get ready for an NFL game, especially one that you've never started before. He's obviously had reps in games before because the Niners have blown out a lot of people. But Jordan Mason had a phenomenal game, and that needs to be the storyline everyone's talking about from that night, not when he found out.
I think Joe Mixon's performance is pretty damn impressive, especially considering that the Bengals didn't use him like this, really. Rarely did they rush him 30-plus times in a game. And to see him week one come out and have that type of performance is gutsy, and I think it's indicative of a very, very good season that Joe Mixon's about to embark on. I think there's a solid chance that he's the NFL's leading rusher this season. I do predict that he will probably have like 1,400, 1,500 rushing yards. I think it'll be a hell of a season. I think because here's the thing about the Texans. I think they're going to be up early, and if you're going to go up early in these games, you're going to be running the ball a lot. And as long as Joe Mixon's healthy, it's going to be a career year for him.
Yeah, and for one, I was very impressed with Joe Mixon's performance over the weekend. But of the three, Jordan Mason, just because of the fact that you're replacing Christian McCaffrey for a game, you're not expected to do what you did, and you probably equaled, if not surpassed, what the expected production of Christian McCaffrey would have been for that game in a different way, of course, strictly just on the ground. Jordan Mason was fantastic. The performance that I was very impressed with the most, only because what it can mean big picture. Jordan Mason was great for that 1 week. Is he this guy moving forward? If they don't, that's the big thing too. Man, this is why people question paying the running back. Christian McCaffrey's fantastic. You will always pick Christian McCaffrey over Jordan Mason. I don't know if you pick Christian McCaffrey at $20 million if Jordan Mason is this big time running back now, but again, that's overreaction after week one. If J.K. Dobbins is this guy, the Chargers are a playoff team. If J.K. Dobbins, when the Chargers got him late, it was just kind of like a random little break. It wasn't even breaking news. It was just a note on the ticker on ESPN. I was like, that's a sneaky good get. because we forget how good J.K. Dobbins was when he was healthy with the Ravens. The problem was he was just never healthy with the Ravens. That's one reason why the Ravens moved on from him and opted to go all in to get a Derrick Henry. J.K. Dobbins with the Chargers, who of course gave up on every single one of their offensive weapons so that they can keep and reallocate all the dollars to their defense so that they can start fresh on the offensive side of the ball. All of a sudden, Justin Herbert doesn't have a whole lot of playmakers there, but if J.K. Dobbins can provide that steady balance at the run game, I really like J.K. Dobbins, and I think he could be a difference maker for the Chargers. Now, can he be this every week? I don't know, but if he is, he could be a big-time playmaker for them moving forward.
And Ladd looks great.
Yeah, so
Ladd
Might have some
Ladd
weapons on the outside.
Looked very good. J.K. Dobbins, again, I watched a majority of that game. Don't get me wrong, he was explosive. He was what they needed him to be. But I will say 61 yards of that number was on one play. It was a 1 yard where one rush did go for 61 yards. So it's a little bit of a skewed number. Nonetheless, if he's healthy, if he's able to play week after week, yeah, it'll change what the Chargers offense might look like. But nonetheless, it was still a good performance. I'm just saying that, one rush kind of carried the load there.
I do think that's what he's going to be if he's good there, though, because they have Gus Edwards as well, who they went out and got. I think he's going to be their short yardage, pound the rock kind of guy. They're going to use J.K. Dobbins to hopefully bust one big one a game. And if he can have a 20 to 30-yard run a game, I think he could put up 70 to 80 rushing yards every day, and that's exactly what I think the Chargers need out of him. I love Justin Herbert. I'm a little bit annoyed that he finally has a good coach, and it's a coach that's going to take the ball out of his hands a lot, because I think Justin Herbert's incredible, and when he's throwing the ball 45 times a game, he's one of the most fun guys to watch in the entire league. But obviously that hasn't gotten the Chargers anywhere since they drafted him. So the change in philosophy, the change in scheme is going to be great for them. I have no doubt in my mind that Harbaugh is going to have the Chargers competing in a year or two probably. I don't know that they're Super Bowl contenders this year. I definitely think they could muck up the AFC a little bit, AFC West a little bit, especially the AFC at the end of the wild card race at that 7, 8, 9 slot. They could definitely be in there at the end of the year. Herbert's phenomenal. Harbaugh knows how to win in the NFL. It's just a matter of time for getting the skill back there to really compete with some of these other teams on the outside.
Yeah, watching Josh Allen, Justin Herbert having to readjust to not having so many explosive weapons, you get to find out just how good you are, and I think that's going to be an interesting year for both of those two. Caleb Williams, not the most impressive rookie debut, although he did something that rookie quarterbacks have not done in decades, which is win their debut in the NFL. 14-29, 93 yards. We talked about 18 quarterbacks throwing for under 200 yards. He was one of those 18, but he didn't throw for just under 200. He threw for under 100. Caleb Williams bounced back week 2. Obviously he wasn't great by any means. He wasn't good.
Is the word.
He didn't lose. So he played terrible, right? But you look at how Deshaun lost his team the game. Deshaun lost his team the game with how
100%.
poorly he played. To Caleb Williams' credit, he didn't lose the Bears the game. I know that they won, but he never hurt them. He just didn't help advance them.
Wow.
Does he have a bounce-back game in week 2? I know you're high on Caleb Williams. That was probably less than what we expected from a rookie debut. How does he bounce back in week 2?
He won't be that bad again. He's a good quarterback. I'm just saying that was he played objectively terrible. I mean, he didn't help that offense whatsoever. 93 yards of offense is a joke. And I wonder how many yards he had up until the fourth quarter, because I don't think it was a lot.
No.
But yeah, will he be better? 100%, because to be quite honest, he can't really be worse. I've seen the bottom of the barrel, and it's pretty much Bryce Young and last week's performance of Caleb Williams. I think both guys will be better this week. Caleb will eventually throw for a touchdown. I think he's just figuring it out. And yeah, he'll be better. I think the Titans team is probably better than people give it credit for as well. So he maybe had a tough time against that defense. But nonetheless, yeah, he will be better. They play who this week? They play
Texans.
I think he'll have a bounce-back performance this week.
Texans' defense is okay. It's not elite.
I think
he'll Hunter, but
he should be able to score.
Dominant
he should be able to
rushers.
score.
That'll be a fun one. And again, that's an interesting matchup because he's going up against the quarterback that actually has ruined it for him.
Yeah.
Caleb, if C.J. Stroud doesn't have the absolutely dominant rookie season he did, maybe the best ever, maybe we're not as critical. Well, no, you should be critical of that performance, no doubt. But I think there's a lot of people looking at Caleb Williams if you're not what C.J. Stroud was, how good are you?
Yeah.
Fair or not, that's going to be the case. Micah Parsons looked dominant in week 1 for the Cowboys. Obviously, Myles Garrett's always going to be in the defensive player of the year conversation. T.J. Watt looked great. Chris Jones, very solid against the Ravens. Right now, I'm assuming one of those guys is going to be your defensive player of the year. if where are you at with who you think the front runner is to get Defensive Player of the Year? Is it going to be T.J. Watt's year so we could stop his crybaby, attitude? What do you guys think there? Or is it the field? Is it someone that's not in those four I just mentioned?
I think it's probably going to be Watt. I think if they have any chance of winning games, it's going to be because of him. My answer is going to be T.J. Watt. Especially, I think he's going to have such a good first half of the season before the gauntlet schedule kicks in that I think it'll give him a big edge over Garrett and everybody else.
My pick's Chris Jones, and it's been Chris Jones since the start of the season. I think the issue with T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, all those edge rushers is they're all going to have good numbers. And when you're comparing 20 sacks to 21 sacks to 22 sacks, you start splitting hairs. If there's an interior D tackle with 15 sacks to 16 sacks, he's winning that award, at least in my opinion. That's what we saw Aaron Donald do 4 times. Because those numbers don't need to be as high when you're lined up in the middle because you're getting double teamed, you're getting triple teamed. I know it happens to Myles Garrett. I know it happens to T.J. Watt. And it happens to them more than basically any edge rusher we've ever seen in the NFL. This era is unbelievably talented. But if Chris Jones plays 17 games, I think the gap between him and the next best interior D-line pass rusher with Aaron Donald retired now is about as big as the gap between the best player and the second best player at any position in the league. So I'm going to give it to Chris Jones just because I think his numbers are going to be incredibly gaudy for an interior player. They're not going to stack up on paper with the guys on the outside, but I think the voters and everyone else will realize the type of season he has. And if that defense is going to be good in Kansas City, it's going to be because of Chris Jones. I know they're going to win a lot of games because of Patrick Mahomes, but he's the one that makes that defense go. Nick Bolton had a great sophomore season last year. He was one of the lowest graded defensive players at linebacker last week for the Chiefs. So Chris Jones is going to have to step up and play incredible all year long. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to do so. That's my pick for Defensive Player of the Year.
All right, last one, just kind of combing through this. Trevor Lawrence, 162 yards, did not play well in week 1. Kyler Murray did not look very solid in week 1. I want to ask you about his comment about Marvin Harrison coming up here in a moment. Joe Burrow didn't look good in week 1. Aaron Rodgers did not look good. He didn't get hurt, so but outside of that,
the
he
arm
didn't look
looked good.
What's that?
The arm looked good.
I thought he made good throws early.
Like a 45-year-old that just tore his Achilles.
I mean, he throws. I've never seen a quarterback throw sidearm with his shoulders parallel.
Yeah.
It was very weird. But which quarterback, of the bigger name quarterbacks out there that didn't look great, and notice I didn't put Deshaun in there. I'm being a little, self-aware at this point. Of the quarterbacks that didn't just ball out in week 1 that had expectations to do so, which one has the biggest bounce back week? Is it Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers? Where are you at with some of these quarterbacks that just didn't look the part in week 1?
Yeah, personally, I'd say I think Kyler is the one that I think is going to bounce back well. I think he looked great, in my opinion. Obviously, the passing yards weren't there, but he tucked and ran and was dynamic with his legs. He made enough plays with the arm to get the Cardinals out early and have a lead over a team that a lot of people expect to be a playoff team this year in the Bills. So that's exactly what I wanted to see out of the Cardinals early. Obviously, a team that I picked to make the playoffs in the NFC. They showed that they can compete with some top-end talent, and it looked good. And he just needs to get on the same page with some other guys. Marvin Harrison streaking down the field open for a touchdown once, and he just missed him with a true blown coverage. I really think the Cardinals are going to be a really good team, especially offensively. The defense showed the holes why a lot of people don't agree with me about their chances this season, but the offense is not going to be the reason that they lose. Kyler Murray's certainly not going to be the reason that they lose. He looked good on Sunday, even though the numbers don't necessarily reflect it, and I think he's going to continue to look better as the season goes on and he gets more comfortable in the offense.
If I threw Kirk Cousins, I meant to throw him in that list. I'm so sorry. My apologies.
See, I was about to do it because I do think Kirk Cousins will have a bounce-back performance. Okay. I don't think Kirk Cousins is this bad. 16 for 26, 155 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Kyle Pitts was the recipient of that touchdown. I think he's still learning the offense. I still think he's building chemistry with some of these Falcons pass catchers, and I do think they have some elite pass catching in Atlanta. So, yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is going to be my guess. Aaron Rodgers is probably my 2. I thought his connection with Garrett Wilson on Monday night was pretty solid, especially in that first half. I know it kind of tailed off towards the end. But nonetheless, yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a good season. I really do. I think that was a bad week 1, and they looked terrible against a very, very good defense. I maybe it's just because Jacob and Casey have talked me so much into the Falcons, but I do like their offense. I don't hate it. I think it's going to be a new look. I don't think you're going to see them score 10 points very often. I think they're going to score 20-plus points a week. I think they're that good. So Kirk Cousins is my answer.
I'm terrified about Kirk.
You're out on Kirk.
Not out on Kirk. Not
You're
out
out.
on Kirk. Everything that I possibly could have seen in week 1 to make me not feel good about Kirk Cousins, I saw. Everything. Every single thing. Any deep ball, he was throwing off his front foot. All the dropbacks were a step short, basically. He was sliding his right foot out on throws across the middle, so he wasn't planting on it. Whether it's the injury or whether he's just not comfortable yet, that Achilles is still affecting how he plays. And I know the focus this offseason has been on Rodgers and how he's going to bounce back because he's the bigger name, MVP, all that good stuff, and deservedly so. But I think the Falcons have just as many expectations as the Jets this year when it comes to being a competitor. And Aaron Rodgers looked much closer to being 100% healthy than Kirk Cousins did. Obviously, that's a little bit to be expected. One injury happened 4 plays into the season. One injury happened towards the middle. So you would expect the guy that had about 6 months more of recovery time to be further along, and he was. But I also thought Kirk Cousins was going to look better or at least more comfortable, and he just didn't. So I still am very, very high on the Falcons, but one thing I'm wondering is when does it get loud? How many bad weeks is Cousins allowed to have? Because they did draft a quarterback in the top 10.
But you did just pay him a bunch of money. And there was the one throw that really went viral on Twitter. I don't know if anybody saw it, but it was like he had a clean pocket. He had all the time in the world, and he decided to step up and make a throw where there was like 2 Steelers defenders, Falcons wide receiver not in sight, and he just tried to throw it at the ground right in the middle of them. It was terrible. But I do think Kirk Cousins is going to figure this out. I have no doubt in my mind. His floor is too high for him to be this bad of a quarterback. So
what does that do? So is the front office caught so much heat,
and they
for
should have
drafting Michael Penix Jr. after signing him, but then like who gets the last laugh if something happens with, of course, Kirk Cousins, and then Michael Penix Jr. is there to bail him out, assuming that he could play at a level to maybe he doesn't match the skill set of the expectations of what we thought of Kirk Cousins. But, man, that would be a wild scenario where the front office could look back at everyone that mocked them, all the media, all the fans, and say, I guess we don't look so silly now, do we? Well, as you're paying Kirk Cousins, yeah, you kind of look a little silly so we'll see.
I think I might be the only person in the entire world that didn't think that was a terrible pick or the worst pick of the draft or anything like that.
The justification wasn't bad. It just doesn't fit the blueprint of what teams do nowadays. But you're right, Jacob. It was like they felt good about their reasoning.
Good pick, if I'm being honest.
It's not that they took a backup quarterback there. It's that they took one above J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix, who I thought by the way, I don't believe in either of them as well as Michael Penix. But I certainly thought I would trust them more than Michael Penix as of yesterday,
really?
as of when they were drafted. 100%. 100% I would have. I think Michael Penix is great. Here's the thing about Michael Penix. He gets hurt a lot. He's been injured a lot in his college career, and I think that's going to be a factor, unfortunately, in the NFL. Usually that's the case. If you're injured a lot, it usually doesn't change once you move up a level. So, yeah, I thought it was a bad pick from the jump because I think there were 2 better options available.
I had Michael Penix, pretty clearly, distantly as my quarterback 3 in the draft. I thought the fall-off after Caleb, Jaden, and then Penix was astronomical to get to the next 2. I didn't think Bo Nix was going to be ready at all. And then JJ, he's never thrown the ball when it matters, so I didn't have faith in him either. I think the thing with the Falcons that a lot of people point to when they drafted Penix is that they have other holes that they need to fill, and they could have drafted someone that will help them win now right away. What are those holes for the Falcons? Because I don't really see them. And you went and signed a 40-year-old quarterback with a pretty high floor, and the only thing that's going to kill him is injury. And if he gets hurt and you have Desmond Ridder backing him up, all due respect to the Bearcat, what a legend, that 2021 season, we'll never forget it. But he got cut elsewhere. If he comes into the game and he's trying to lead your team to the playoffs, we saw how that worked last year. They fell short. So I think they're just giving themselves a chance to win if Kirk doesn't work out health-wise. And I know they signed him to a 4-year big-time contract, and that's a big thing that people circle and say you're just flushing money down the drain. But don't we want NFL teams to not worry about the money and just do exactly what they think is best to win? And if their main worry about the Falcons' ability to compete this year was losing Kirk Cousins and having to go to the backup, and you can draft a backup that you believe in, I don't know. I think it's a little bit easier to justify than people think. It wasn't the best pick of the draft. It wasn't a top 10 pick of the draft. I just don't necessarily think it was quite as bad as people think because they also have a 2-year out on Kirk Cousins' contract. So after 2 years, they could cut him with no guaranteed money left. The same thing the Giants are going through right now with Daniel Jones. So we could see Penix sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him this year if Kirk continues to struggle from the Achilles.
Marvin Harrison Jr., week 1 catch, 11 yards. That was it. For a guy that had so many expectations coming in, it doesn't mean he's a bust. It just wasn't the debut that we had anticipated. And there's, people kind of tracking his speed. I guess he was one thing that was alarming to people is that Cardinals receiver Marvin Harrison's max speed in week 1 versus Buffalo was 16.7 miles per hour.
That is slow.
That said, that's historically slow. And of course, that's led to a lot of questions being thrown out to him and to Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray at one point this week had a quote that I actually feel bad. I knew exactly what he meant, but of course it's being dissected to a point where he sounds like a bad leader. He said, it's not my job to get Marvin Harrison the football. It's my, the context was, hey, it's not my job to get him the football. My job is to get the football to the open receiver and to get the ball to any, to help the offense move forward. People, of course, starting to criticize his leadership. I disagree with that. Usually Kyler Murray creates a lot of his own messes, especially with all the gaming stuff that happened, all that. But already noise in Arizona tied into Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray. I'm pro Kyler Murray in this situation. I don't think he said anything wrong. I think he said it dangerously to where people could nitpick it, but if you actually listen to what he said, I have no problem with what he said. He's basically saying, hey, it's not my job to get him the football. It's my job to get everyone the football that's open to get to run this offense. But your guys' takeaway on that?
That's exactly what I want my quarterback to say.
Yeah,
maybe,
I have no
maybe
clue.
I'm crazy,
Yeah.
but later in the quote, he also said his offensive coordinator by name. He said, my job is to run the plays that he draws up, and when he draws up to guys to get open, it's my job to get the ball to those open guys. Correct. Why is this something we're losing our mind over? If my quarterback went out there at the podium and said, oh, yeah, every time I walk out there, I'm thinking, okay, how do I get the ball to Marvin Harrison? And then if he's covered, I'll move on to my other reads. Well, you're not going to win a lot of games in the NFL like that, because what do teams try to do, especially when you're an up-and-coming team with a clear number one like the Cardinals are? They just try to eliminate that number one and have you do other things. So to have a quarterback go through and go through his reads and say he's going through his progressions, that's exactly what you should do. And Marvin Harrison Jr. looked terrible on Sunday. Terrible on Sunday. He was one of the slowest players in the league, like you said. Got to be careful reading this one on air. But he also had the second lowest ASS in the entire league. That's average.
Slow ass.
That's average separation score. He was one of only 2 rookies with a negative average separation score, him and Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette was a guy we talked about all offseason that could not get separation in college. That was his main worry going into the league. And now Marvin Harrison dealing with the same things. Am I worried about Marvin Harrison's career? Absolutely not. Do I think he's going to finish this season as a top 10, 12, maybe 15 fantasy receiver? Absolutely. I think he's going to be incredible, and I still think he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I just think it's going to take a little bit of time for them to get up to speed, for him to get up to the offense, because I watched a lot of Marvin Harrison in college. He never ran 16.7 miles per hour. He would take slants to the house like nobody's business. He would outrun some of the fastest corners in the league, and he was a great deep ball threat. And at 16 miles an hour, you're not going to run any deep balls in the NFL. There was a blown coverage that if he catches that and takes it in for a touchdown, that then we're not even talking about it today. But I think a lot of the underlying metrics would have came out anyway. And he looked slow, and he wasn't beating corners off the line. And that was unfortunate because I thought he was going to come in and hit the ground running with nothing holding him back. And it seems like it's holding him back a little bit, but zero concern long-term about Marvin Harrison. He's going to be phenomenal when he gets his footing.
Joe Klatt, I was listening to his podcast the other day. One point he brought up I thought was actually very interesting. People were trying to figure out why Kyle McCord at Ohio State looks so average, just so I mean, he had Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka. He had so much talent last year and just looks so average. Yeah. He goes to Syracuse. You don't have Egbuka. You don't have Marvin Harrison. And he just looks fantastic. I think it's Sir Boy in here saying it's your damn job to get the ball to your best player. One of the points that Joe Klatt made was sometimes for a Kyle McCord who comes in that's not the elite of the elite, but has the elite of the elite weapons, sometimes you don't play the position right because you're so focused on, oh, man, I got to get Marvin Harrison the ball. I got to get Egbuka the ball. And I think a lot of times that led to Kyle McCord looking so average last year. Kyle McCord's playing so free and loose at Syracuse because it's not about, oh, my God, I got to get this guy the ball. It's I just got to get the ball out and just execute the play and go through my reads. I'm not comparing college to the NFL, but the concept, the overall concept of football doesn't drastically change from college to the NFL in this particular case. I get Sir Boy's point. You know, if Joe Burrow was just not getting the ball to Jamar Chase, we'd be like, hey, you need to get him the ball more. But if he's not getting the ball and he's equally distributing it and the Bengals are winning, I don't care who gets the damn ball,
Exactly.
right? So I get Sir Boy's point and why he's being as passionate about that. But at the end of the day, I do think that if Kyler Murray's whole sole purpose was to get Marvin Harrison the ball, got to get him the ball, that's a problem. You got to let it's the offensive coordinator's job to drop schemes to get guys open. And that's where I disagree with Sir Boy from that perspective. I get what he's saying. I just disagree with him a little bit from that perspective.
Would the Cardinals be better getting Marvin Harrison the ball more? Yeah. I think we all know that. That's why
Within
they
the
took
flow
him
of the
so high in the
offense,
draft.
yeah.
Because they think they'd be better getting him the ball more. It just didn't work in week 1, and I don't want a quarterback who's out there not thinking about winning or losing or what's best for the offense, but thinking about getting one guy his numbers. I don't like selfish players on my team, and if Marvin Harrison was walking into the locker room being upset about touches when the team played a very competitive game that they were expected to lose by a lot more in, then I'd be upset with Marvin Harrison, not anyone else. I want guys that are focused on winning and not focused on throwing to one receiver. And I think it's the offensive coordinator's job to look at that film and say, okay, we need to get Marv the ball more. We need to scheme him open more and do more creative things because that's his job. That's not Kyler Murray's job. Kyler Murray's job is to go out there and give the Cardinals a chance to win the games. I expect him to get him the ball more, and I think they will down the stretch because that's their best chance to win. But it's certainly not Kyler Murray's job to mastermind an offense and try to fix problems.
I also think people want the Bengals to run more to open up the pass game. It's almost like a little decoy. You want T. Higgins out there to free up Jamar Chase. You start using other wide receivers, and that really good wide receiver you have becomes more wide open because defenses have to adjust to you throwing it all over the field. I think that's a large part of it too, and I don't think it was a massive deal that Marvin Harrison didn't catch more than one pass. He didn't look good. So at the end of the day, I think he's going to be a big part of the Cardinals' offense going forward. And I'd imagine it's going to be they're going to maybe try to do a little bit of what the Bengals do, have a couple of really good wide receivers, have an elite wide receiver, and maybe the really good ones will free up space for the elite one and make the elite one look even better. So I don't know. I'm not too worried about any of that. And that Kyler Murray quote's a nothing burger. I thought that's a fine quote.
Yeah, and like I said, Sir Boy, I completely understand where you're coming from, but I think it's just I don't think he's saying I don't want to get the ball to Marvin Harrison. I think he's just saying I'm not forcing it to Marvin Harrison at the end of the day. This transitions perfectly to this. I did not realize this. I was watching one of the NFL shows on ESPN. I don't know why I don't remember the name of the show. It doesn't matter. Laura Rutledge. Love Laura Rutledge. But Laura Rutledge said this. It has been 7 games. Marvin Harrison. Jamar Chase has not had more than 70 yards in 6 straight games. And he has not caught a touchdown since December 4th. Okay. And this kind of transitions into this, when Jamar was asked, how come we only got 6 targets? I don't know. Ask Zach, ask Coach. That's a question for them. Do the Bengals, with all the issues that they've had that you just saw last week, is it a scheme problem? Because I know last year Joe Burrow didn't play the back half of the season, so some of these numbers are skewed. I get that, but at the same time, you go back to, when they played the Colts last year, only 4 targets. Only targeted 4 times against Minnesota, 7 times against, of course, Kansas City, and then 6 targets against Cleveland in the final week of the season, and then, of course, only 6 targets last week. The most targets he has had in the last 10 games was 12 targets back on December 4th, 12 targets against Jacksonville, and he had 149 yards and a touchdown. I mean, I know it kind of goes against what we just talked about, or not really, because we're talking about quarterbacks forcing it. Obviously, you would like Jamar to touch the football more. He's not even getting the targets to even get the opportunities to get the ball more. How concerned are you about the play calling or just about the schematics of getting Jamar Chase the football, especially in T. Higgins' absence? Normally, I wouldn't be as concerned when you had Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase out there. But when he's your primary playmaker, your only playmaker out there that is worth anything right now, financially especially, are you guys concerned when you break those numbers down?
No, because the primary quarterback's Joe Burrow, and he was not available towards the end of last season. So you had Jake Browning using that offense, and Jake Browning was going to do whatever Jake Browning wanted to do. As long as he completed a pass to anybody, I was fine with it.
But Jefferson's played with backup quarterbacks. We've
Sure.
seen elite wide receivers continue that on even with backups.
Sure. I'll say this. If Joe Burrow doesn't increase the amount of targets to Jamar Chase the next couple of weeks, then maybe I'll start to be concerned.
Okay.
But last year was such a wild, strange time that, no, I'm not worried about this at all.
Yeah, no, I think the offense with Jake Browning is just so drastically different than the offense with Joe Burrow. And is that an issue? Then maybe it might be. That might be an issue.
I mean, the Jake Browning offense was a lot of dink and dunks. It was
100%.
It was the screen game. I don't even know how many wide receiver targets outside of like 10 yards he was throwing to. But yeah, it's just a completely different universe when Jake Browning's a quarterback.
I was much more concerned about the Bengals scheme and play calling when that clock hit zeros on Sunday than I was after watching it back at all.
Yeah.
There was a lot more shots called than were thrown, and I don't know. It goes back to the question I see people asking in the chat right now: is Joe Burrow's wrist okay? I think that's the main concern now, because at the end of the game on 3rd and 10, we talked about it on Chatterbox Bengals on Tuesday night. The Bengals did not go conservative. Everyone was pointing to that play saying, how do you just check it down to the running back, get 5 yards, and punt the ball away and lose the game? The Bengals took a shot. They had 2 outside receivers running out and ups wide open down the sideline. Joe Burrow just moved up with phantom pressure and checked the ball down, and we punted it away. I think Zach Taylor was aggressive on Sunday, and I think with Joe Burrow back there at quarterback, he's going to continue to be aggressive. I think Joe Burrow's wrist is fine, and maybe that's just coping, because if it's not, who knows where we are. But yesterday, to start the media portion of practice, he was standing at the goal line just uncorking deep balls to nobody, to coaches and receivers, basically just saying, hey, look at me. It still works.
Flick of the wrist.
I can still do this. Yeah, he would drop back 2 steps in the end zone and just launch it 70 yards. So I think he's a little bit annoyed as well. They asked him about how he picked up the water bottle, the wrist movements that were called on the broadcast, and he said, if you don't move it, you lose it. So he has, pins and needles and plates and metal in his wrist. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while. You're never going to get used to that, really. So he's going to continue to mess with it. If he's doing this after throwing an 80-yard touchdown, we're going to care about it a lot less than if he's doing this after throwing for 180 yards. So I think it's all just time with Joe. He's going to get used to it eventually. I really don't think it's an injury-causing problems. I think it is mental, and hopefully he can get over that by this week, because the shots were there, and the shots to Jamar Chase were there. I still would like a little bit more creativity with his route tree. We see the next-gen screenshots of his routes, and they're all pretty much straight lines or so, and you see the guys like Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson running beautiful double-move routes, moving them all around the field, and we're just not nearly as creative with Jamar Chase, and I don't understand why, because if you have this talent and you're going to pay this talent, you have to maximize this talent, and you don't do that by running ins and outs. You do that by running double moves and slants and motions and being creative and getting him the ball in space, because he's the best player on the Bengals with the ball in space, and there's no one that's going to argue that. And whether that's screens as an extension of the run game or whatever else, be creative with Jamar. Get out of your comfort zone. Get him the ball in ways that are unorthodox and new to the Bengals, because I feel like this Bengals offense gets pretty predictable pretty early in games if the script doesn't go their way.
Yeah, I'll take Jamar over Debo any day of the week, but I love the way the Niners utilize Debo to maximize his talent. The Niners do a good job getting the most out of Debo. The Bengals have never done a poor job of getting the most out of Jamar until recently, but to a lot of people's point in the chat, yes, I'm aware, backup quarterback played the majority of last season. And even when Joe Burrow was playing, remember, it was a limited offense because of the calf early on. That's why they weren't able to throw the ball deep. Jamar Chase is best when the deep ball is rolling, and that's just not there as of right now. Okay, we wrap this up. Browns, Bengals, both 0-2, looking to turn things around this coming up weekend. I know most of you are not pulling for the Browns, but you know what? I'm throwing the Cleveland in there because I like Cleveland. So with that being said, both horrendous in the first week. Both fan bases feel absolutely horrible after the first week. Which fan base, which team, which organization desperately needs a week 2 win more? And do you consider this week 2 matchup against the Chiefs, as wild as it sounds, do you consider Bengals Chiefs week 2? All right, we've seen the slow starts for years now. This just feels different. Do you consider week 2 Bengals Chiefs a must-win game for Cincinnati?
No, but here's the because I wrote it in as a loss before the season started. It's on the road. It's against the best quarterback. They've won back-to-back Super Bowls. So I'm not gonna say I don't have any hope, but I don't have a ton of hope or optimism, especially after the way last week went or Sunday went, that the Bengals are going to come into Burrowhead and win that game. I just don't think it's going to happen. But nonetheless, saying that, do they have to win? No. What they have to do is show me that the offense is still there. That's what they have to do. They have to prove to me that Joe Burrow can still throw, that Jamar Chase is going to get more than 6 catches for 60 yards. The offense has to look fluent. If the offense looks fluent and they lose, that's fine. There are no moral victories, but at the end of the day, if I can just see this team work the way it's supposed to work, because your team can work in a loss. Those things happen. And if that happens on Sunday, I'm not going to be upset. If they come out and they lose 30-10, we're going to have problems. We're going to have a lot of problems. And that's what I'm concerned about. So it's not a must-win, but you got to show up for this one.
Well, it's not a can't lose.
That's right.
Because I think they can come back, but I think it might be a must-win. I think the mindset around this team, if you win this game, it changes so drastically. Because 1-1 through week 2 was almost everyone's expectation.
Yeah.
So if you are 1-1 through week 2, who cares about how you got there? Everything's back on the table. I think 0-2 knocks you out of the number 1 seed contention with a loss in the AFC to the Patriots and a loss head-to-head to the Chiefs. I think to keep everything on the table for the Bengals that we wanted this year, and that includes the 1 seed and home games in Paycor in January, you have to win this game. But I don't think losing it derails your season entirely. So I don't think it's a can't lose, but it definitely leans closer to a must-win for me. And when you talk about the Browns and the Bengals, I think the Bengals need it much more just because of those preseason expectations. If the Browns don't make the playoffs, if the Browns don't compete for the AFC North, what's the conversation? People are still going to be mad at Deshaun. There's going to be questions about what would have happened if Nick Chubb was healthy. If the defense is bad, it's a little different because everyone expects them to be at the top of the league. And if they aren't, then you have questions about something you didn't think you'd have questions about. But I think there's a lot of things you can blame with the Browns to just say the window to really compete isn't here yet, even though we have a lot of really good players. If this year does get off the rails, I think with the Bengals it's almost make or break this year in terms of not winning a Super Bowl or the window's closed, but you have to keep competing. Every year that you have Joe Burrow out there, you have to compete for a Super Bowl. And if that's losing in the second round to the Chiefs or the Ravens or a really good Texans team or whoever else, then so be it. That's not what I want, but so be it. If you miss the playoffs, if you're a 7 seed and get blown out in the first round or something like that, then we're having some really tough conversations in Cincy that I think it just takes a lot more to have those tough conversations in Cleveland. That's the only reason why I think the Bengals are a little bit more crucial this week.
Yeah, it goes back to it's not if you lose, it's how you lose. And we talked about this with the Patriots. If you lose to the Patriots or if you only beat the Patriots by a field goal, do you come in Monday and feel good? Hey, we're 1-0. That's all that matters. I know the confidence level was higher last week. And, hey, all I care about is being 1-0. Still think there would have been a little vibes of like, man, Joe Burrow didn't look great. The chemistry with Jamar seems off. I mean, they still had a chance to win that game. I still don't think vibes are super high on Monday other than just feeling better about the win, of course. So with the Chiefs, though, the bottom line is you're not going to win a bad game against them. That's the problem. So if you beat them,
you might not even win your best game against them.
So that's the thing, like as far as that goes. So if they play a very good game and still lose, the vibes will be through the roof when you guys come back in on Monday.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Cleveland's more of a must-win at this point just because their morale, they have all the expectations. They have a top 5 defense. The defense, I'm more confident in coming back. The defense looked way better in the second half to begin with. The defense was atrocious in the first half. I said Cleveland played one of the worst games I've ever seen them play from every single player and person and coach on the field, and they turned it around in the second half. Deshaun was the storyline, and, of course, has been the storyline even off the field at this point. I think Cleveland, they desperately need a morale win because you go 0-2 with all the Deshaun, the extra lawsuit that's coming on now. There's just not one little tiny bit of positive angle at all with the Browns if they lose to Trevor Lawrence and, of course, the Jaguars on Sunday. I think Cleveland needs to win. The Bengals just need to be competitive, to repeat some of what you said. I think they need to win. Yeah, you don't want to start out 0-2. I get that. But, like, what they need to do is Joe Burrow needs to look like he's on par with Patrick Mahomes. And he always has and always does. But he needs to let people know that, hey, people are questioning now my durability. They're questioning if I'm injury prone. They're questioning if I'm still the same guy. They're questioning, hey, I got paid and now look, all of a sudden I've taken a step back. There's a lot on the line from a competitive standpoint. They just need to go look the part. The Bengals, if they look the part against the Chiefs and they pick up where they leave off in week 3 against bad teams, the Bengals will be fine. It's not a must-win for Cincinnati. It's we must look competitive for Cincinnati. And I think if they look competitive, they have a legitimate shot at winning as far as that's concerned. So.
Yeah, that's the brutal thing about playing the Chiefs at all anymore with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is you need to play an A to A+ game, and honestly, cross your fingers that they're somewhere in the Bs. Because your A game is not going to beat their A game.
Yep.
If we're being completely honest, maybe if everyone's hitting on all cylinders, the Bengals could do it. That's exactly what happened when we played in the AFC Championship, the game there, and came back from down 21-3. Everyone was hitting on all cylinders, and they started to fade in the second half. You just need to hope that that happens early in the game. And if anyone can beat the Chiefs on an A game, I think it is probably the Bengals, just because the weapons on the outside and the ability to put up points that a lot of other teams don't have without needing long, sustained drives. If the Ravens are going to beat the Chiefs, they need a few 5-minute drives, 7-minute drives. The Bengals can beat the Chiefs with a 20-second bomb, and we've seen them do that before. So I think their strengths give them a little bit more wiggle room with the Chiefs than most teams, but it's still such an unbelievably tough matchup, no matter how many holes they have on their team, because they have Patrick Mahomes playing quarterback. And we can hate on him and hate on the Chiefs and pick at the holes all we want, but as many holes that they had last year, they filled a lot of them going into this year. This roster is much better than the team that won the Super Bowl last year, and he's still pretty dang good. So I don't know if I'll ever have optimism going into Kansas City or playing the Chiefs, but I certainly think that if anyone can beat them consistently, it is the Bengals, and we've seen them at least be competitive consistently. Hopefully that continues this weekend.
Last thing on the way out, Cam Taylor-Britt. People on social media saying, "Oh, why is he talking smack?" They just come off a week 1 loss like that against the Patriots. I like that. I like it because what that means is like, oh man, we could be here and sulk about our week 1 loss, or we can look ahead to the Chiefs and say, hey, F you guys, we're coming in to get a road win. If I'm a Bengals fan, I feel pretty good about that. I know some are kind of saying, hey, maybe you guys should slow your roll. Maybe you should be quiet. You're coming off of a loss. You don't look very good. The fact that players aren't hanging their head and upset about the loss to the Patriots, that they're looking at the Chiefs and saying, hey, we beat the Chiefs, we forget about the Patriots, and we're full steam ahead.
That's right.
We'll see what happens.
Former Husker, current Bengal, future star. That's right, Elliot.
That's right. Real quick before we end it, we have optimistic John Silvani, Caleb Hines, $20 for the Browns losing. This will cover the $20 I owe him. Honor and like AJ says, leader of men to Elliot. So
we love honor in our
$20
chat.
from John Silvani.
I saw that debacle unfolding in the chat yesterday and today, and I love all of our chat members. But if you're going to make bets, you got to pay them out.
That's right.
That's 1-1. If you're going to make bets, you got to pay them out. So kudos to John for following through with his word there.
All right, well, I got to go hit the bar. I'm going out to celebrate Tom's birthday. Happy birthday, Tom. I don't know if he'll be there, but I'm going to be there celebrating his birthday. You guys want to go celebrate Tom's birthday?
Sounds like a plan.
That sounds good to me.
All right, sounds like a plan. Hey, look at us going past 12.
Look at that.
Look at us,
Look
just
at
showing
that.
off, you know.
Hard workers.
Yep. All right, that wraps it up for us here today. Happy Thursday, everybody. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.